Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the August 24th, 2017 Selectmen's Meeting at 6 p.m. held at 272 Main Street in the Selectmen's Chambers. At this time, 1.1, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call vote.
Sue Lucio present. Cindy King, yes, present.
Gordon Clark present. Let's show we have a quorum. And at this time, 1.2, I would ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
.3, I'd like to announce at this time that the meeting is being tape recorded, and if there's anyone else doing that at this time, if they just declare that. Okay, let me see that. Chairman's additions or deletions, 1.4. I don't have any, but do I have any, Mr. Kryler? That I'm not aware of.
This is a revised agenda, and we did add the second arrow under Chief Bailey.
Okay. And on 2.2, right?
Correct.
Thank you for that, I have that. So there'll be one addition to 2.2 on our agenda. The other thing is, if it's all right with my board members, when we go into executive session, I would like to, with your permission, take a quick recess and reconvene in the administrator's office, just so we could get Harley out of here when it's...
Oh, for the executive session?
Yes, if that's all right. Is that all right with you, Sue?
That's
All right.
fine.
Thank you.
All
As long
right.
as there's no reason for us to reconvene.
I don't believe, but we'll check that before.
Well, you can reconvene, but not on film if you don't.
All right. But I'll just give you a heads up that I would like to do that.
I'm all in favor of that.
Thank you very much. At this time, appointments and hearings, 2.1. And I would like at this time to have Karen Hill, the Conservation Commission, the Squanicook River Cleanup update. Welcome.
Thank you. If you guys had held the meeting a lot earlier in the month, I would have been able to tell you that we've cleaned it up ahead of schedule. We actually got the first half of the river done in the first day, which I think was absolutely phenomenal. And then we got the second part of the river cleaned up the second day, which was a miserable, rainy, cold, nasty day, and everyone stuck it in till the very end, and we got it done. So I want to thank everyone who volunteered but didn't have an opportunity to serve, because we picked 5 weekends and we did it in 2. We are announcing that we're having a party at the VFW on September 16th from 6 to 10. We'll be having a pig roast. Tickets will be $10. Volunteers are going to be sent a free ticket. There'll be a 50-50 raffle, guess the weight of the pig. So, and we try to make it fun. And Nick is preparing the river report. Nick Walko, our former agent, we figured he started it, he should finish it. So he's more than willing to do that, and we should have that at that point in time, so we can show the before, the after, and that'll also be what we go for applying a permit for the next cleanup, because we would like to continue down the river. And since Nick has been in Groton, he's gotten great feedback on what we did, and Groton wants to do something. So Mary or Margaret Stoddard, she founded Nashua River Watershed Association. She wants to see it go all the way to the Nashua River. So we started something, and I guess we're going to keep going. So we're hoping to team up with Groton with the next cleanup. Marion. Okay, I knew it began with an M, but...
It's an M. Date again?
For the party, the 16th of September. 6 to 10.
Big roast.
Jim LeQueer.
I hear he's cool.
Yeah, and I think he's gotten Shaw's to donate a pig. And Dorian Field is donating all the fruits and vegetables. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Do you have anything else, Sue?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cindy, do you have anything at all? Well, the only thing I will say is you said that you would have told us earlier, but I was recovering on intensive IV Colvin after working for you for a day. But I will tell you, Cindy represented the Board of Selectmen on the first cleanup day, and she was smart enough to stay on top of the water most of the time, where on my day, I think the chief stopped counting at 78 times when I went under the water.
Well, lucky for you, the river's kind of shallow.
Yes. But in all seriousness, I've never, ever seen such teamwork and cooperation.
It was like we've been working together forever.
Yeah.
Everyone just
And words
It
do
was
not
amazing.
describe the tasks. There was trees, folks, I'm not exaggerating, trees as thick as this table. And these folks, in one day that I was with them, it was amazing. So I was proud to be my little amusement for you drowning there. And I want to recognize the chief.
Who volunteered both times.
Both times
With
he was
his
there.
wife.
And the first 2 times I went out, he was trying to do life-saving techniques, but after a while, he says, bubbles bounce, and he just left me alone. But, you know, he's been working tons of hours in his new position here, and for him to come out in the community with his wife and donate both days, I want to thank you for that, Chief. And, but mostly, you could tell everyone in your team together that for many years after I'm not sitting here, people in this town and other towns are actually going to go and actually be able to transverse the Squanicook, and you don't realize what a beautiful treasure is until that you go down it. It's
Right.
really, you think you're up in the White Mountains when you go down there.
You don't realize how close 119 is so close, and you don't hear it at all out there.
Absolutely. So it's a
That-
treasure, folks. If you want to take your family out there, whether you're in Townsend or not, I'm telling you, you're missing an opportunity to have a wonderful day out there. And because of these folks, it's a great safe day. So I can't thank you enough. And
Thank you.
All right,
It was actually our pleasure. We've been wanting to get it done, and the town wanted it to get done, and that's why it happened, is because there was a lot of people that wanted to get it done.
And if you have to clean up next year, I'm willing to volunteer anyone else up here at the table to help you out.
If I can add,
Only if it's shallow.
Which spots it is.
I've lived here for like 35 years, and I've never gone on to the Squanicook, and I'm embarrassed to say that. But being on there that first weekend is like, wow. You know, that
It's a treasure.
it is,
Yeah.
and that there's so much that you can, certainly now, since we've made some passages, there's still parts where you have to get out of your
Right.
kayak or canoe.
In high water, you probably
You
won't.
have to move, and depending on the time of year, the river apparently changes its depth, so some of the things we cleaned up make it easier, and sometimes if the water's higher, we're still in trouble. But still, you have to get out of your kayak once in a while, but it's really something that's available to everybody that wants to get out there and enjoy nature and just forget that there's a town out here.
Right.
But I also want to add that if you see John Hussey with a chainsaw, get out of the way, because that's all he sees. He's got a chainsaw, he sees a tree, he's going to cut it. It doesn't matter that you're there under it. It's run.
But that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. No,
Well, I tried to say at 2 o'clock when there was lighting and stuff, I said, geez, Sean,
There
this
was
is-
no lightning,
Well-
you wuss. But anyway,
But I said to him, you know, this would be a good spot to stop. And the chief was looking at me, and John goes, you can leave. I'm not leaving until I'm at the end, so I had to shame me to
It
stay.
was a lot of fun. The weekend that I did was just a really enormous amount of fun. It was great to see everybody out there and to really enjoy the Squanicook. And I encourage everyone in town to make an attempt.
Right.
There's there's a few paths that you can go along.
I'd like to
And I
see
think
if
over
we
time, maybe we can
can't
have some
somehow get some
footpaths so
sort-
that
yeah.
people that aren't kayakers or canoers can really do the Squanicook without having to get in the water at all.
some easier access points would be nice too.
Yeah.
So we'll see what we can do about that.
Well, thank you and your whole team, and if there's anything we can do, please come back to us.
Okay.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for volunteering. And I'll hopefully see you on the 16th.
Yes, I'll try to. 2.2, we're going to move on to Police Chief Rick Bailey. He has 2 things on here to talk to us about Deputy Chief, and also appointment of Amy Wolfgang as Administrative Assistant to the Chief of Police, Rick Bailey. Chief, welcome.
Do you mind if we go to the appointment first?
Sure, absolutely. As long as that's right with everyone else. Okay, thank you.
As you know, we had a process. There were a number of applicants. We brought it down to 4, 3 of which showed up for an interview, and Amy was the choice of all 3 as the top pick. That's always nice to have. If you don't know her, she's an employee of the town at this point. She was a dispatcher. She works part-time for us in the communications center. So she's a perfect fit. She's smart. I think she's very capable of learning things that she may not know. And it will bring some stability to that position. She is like I say, versed in the dispatch part of it. She thinks on her feet. I've seen her act many times. We've had a lot of problems with our radio system with the change, as you know. A number of times it has gone completely down while she's working. I've been there and I've seen her. She just takes control.
Awesome.
She gets it done. She calls who needs to be called. So I think she's a great fit. Excited about having her on board. I would ask that she be brought in at step 3. I know that's higher than obviously 1 and 2, but it's due to her experience in the dispatch center. That's a big part of that job if you're going to be in there answering because the dispatch is going to be there for a while. If there's any thought that it's going to be happening in a couple of months, I don't think so, in dealing with the wreck as we have it. So I believe that she's an asset in that respect, and she's also will be reposition that position downstairs so that position will be able to answer the door during the days and the people who come to the window, and she's versed at doing that. She's done that very well.
So just, and correct me if I'm wrong, just before I'm going to go with Mr. Kryler after this and then to the board, just so people understand there is, due to your reorganization there, we will not have to have a greeter there, that she will do that position too during the day.
That's correct.
Right, so that is saving us a whole position with benefits that we're saving during the day by doing that.
The one thing I do want to do is just keep the greeters for probably a couple of weeks to let her settle into her.
And you, Mr. Crowell, will work that and come back to us. But I'm just letting the people know is that through reorganization, she's going to be doing the duties that she would do, but she's also going to be there to help out with that there.
The chief had said some of the analysis he did was that 8 out of 10 window trips were for that position anyway.
Right. When I first started, I created a list so everybody who came in, not who they were, but what they were there for, was put on. It's about an average of 10 to 12 a day that come in, and more than half of them were coming in to see that administrative assistant for one reason or another.
Okay. Mr. Crowley, do you have anything to say on the steps here?
No, it's in my experience in the time that I've been here, it's not uncommon to bring somebody in within the first 1, 2, or 3 steps. Going beyond that, I've seen happen prior to my serving here, but I don't think there's anything unusual about somebody that the chief determines warrants consideration at that 3rd step.
Sue?
2 things. Usually I thought we got copied on.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Usually I thought we would get copied, or just copies for our information on the resumes of the top 3 or whatever. And I didn't see those come through, which is fine. You could forward it after. The other question that I have, step means the lateral part, right? It's not...
The horizontal, correct.
Okay, okay.
In the same grade that it's been classified, but moving horizontally.
Okay, so it's, the classification is not changing?
Correct.
Okay, because that has another process, right? And we be changing the job description?
It will change some because it's going to combine the current administrative assistant with the duties of being in the front door.
Right, so I don't know that, if you need to reclass it if it gets...
It likely won't reclass because the types of responsibilities being added are lesser responsibilities, if you will.
Okay.
So generally, it wouldn't cause it to go up a grade.
Okay.
That's it.
Yes, thank you.
Cindy?
Yeah, I just have a question just for clarification. I'm comfortable, I think. But she is coming from a part-time dispatcher?
She's part-time now.
Okay.
She has worked in the dispatch center. I don't know how long, to be honest with you.
Okay, but her position now is part-time dispatcher?
Part-time dispatcher.
Okay, and...
Well, the communications, they dispatch and they communicate. She addresses all the folks that come to the window.
Oh, okay.
But there's also,
I know
she communicates with the officers on the radio, and when the transmissions between
Okay.
Neshoba and here go down, she
I know,
handles that
I'm
as well.
generally saying window and dispatcher are the same thing to me. I'm sorry. I know that might be the same. But so her grade and step at this time is what? Without the job, the new job, the old job? Do you know?
As a part-time, I don't know,
Okay,
to be honest with you.
okay. Does she know she's going to the step 3?
She does not.
Okay. All right.
I told her what the steps were, and I told her I was going to recommend that, but that's
Okay.
not a guarantee.
All right, okay.
And it's 90 cents an hour difference between 1 and 3.
Okay. I just want to make sure that she's at least getting what she's getting. Is she
Yes,
not getting a pay
yes,
cut?
no, she's not taking a pay cut.
Okay. I was just trying to...
That's a reasonable question.
I was
It is a good
just trying to
probably
see, where are we at? Like, is she, I mean, usually, I mean, often, not necessarily that I have that issue, but sometimes there's a concern, okay, you want to bring her to that step, but is she already at that pay, or?
And that part-time position there varies on who's working it and when. It's, if a town employee works, it's
How long
time
has she
and a
worked for the
half.
town?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
recall.
She says,
Several
I
years.
just had a little familiarity to help the chief.
Okay.
She's had broken time at different, she's filled in the
Okay.
different positions for us.
Her name doesn't sound familiar to me, and I apologize for that, but I don't know her name. But I want to make sure, since, particularly where there's concern, hopefully that you and Jim can work together to make sure that, is this a promotion?
It's a career move for her, and it's an increase in pay. So, you could call it a promotion, I
Okay.
guess.
Well, since we're not sure about what she's making, I mean, if we don't know what she's making, is it an increase in pay?
It is.
I just
And
want to make sure.
she's going from, obviously, part-time to full-time. She'll be able to have benefits.
Right. I just want to make sure that she's
She's
if
good.
your intent is to give her a promotion, even if it's not a job, it might be lateral, but if your intent is to give her a raise, then I want to make sure that you guys, that
Yeah.
you're okay
Yes.
with that. If
She's
step
okay,
three-
she's okay with the range. She knew the range coming in.
Step three
She
is
wasn't
okay.
guaranteed the third, but she knew that he was going to advocate for it. She's good with the rate,
She's good?
and it is a job that is a professional step up for her.
Okay. I don't know, everybody's kind of unclear about what that is, but could you let us know what it is? I mean,
What her
I'm
part-time
happy,
rate is?
I'm content to vote on it tonight, myself, but I'm just, like to, just get this, just
Do you have the
general.
matrix handy?
Let us know what it is.
I do have the matrix right now, so I grab it
I
right
believe it's
now.
1864, but that could be 10 cents off.
Right, she's looking at what she's making as a
Oh,
reader.
that's a greeter.
I think that's 17 for some reason, it's stuck in my head.
So we'll just take a quick break here. I just will, so people out there know is that the chief did quite a bit of work on self-designing how to make this position more functional, but he also, where the job entails budgetary assist to him, and also keeping of records at times. Part of his interview team was our town accountant and the town clerk, who both have probably more knowledge in those factors. So I compliment you on bringing two outside experts in, along with your law enforcement, to give it a well-rounded interview. And the fact is that they were interviewed by people on a weekly basis, payroll or keep of records that they'll deal with. And so it's good that those people have a good feel and part of the process. So Chief, thank you for it.
And I've talked to Amy, and I've told her that part of the training would be some cross-training with those folks.
That's
Because those are the people that she's going to be dealing with all the time.
Yep.
Payroll, finance.
And the nice thing is, like you said, that's going to be part of it, but she already is familiar with those people who are the experts in town. So that was a good idea on your part to being independent, professional people and to do interviews, so thank you for that, Chief. I'm trying to kill a couple seconds here.
I have a question.
Sure. Do we need Jim back here before we go?
No.
Okay.
No, the chief can answer it, I'm sure. What if she's not there? Who would fill in for her? I mean, thinking of backup is all I'm thinking.
If she's not there,
Because you
if we
said that
had
the greeters...
If we had the staffing and I felt it necessary, I would have an officer stay in the building. But
Okay.
the window can go unfilled. It has many times. It does after they go home from their day shifts.
And right now, not to interrupt you, Chief, but right now, through our grants that we got here, part of this process, call boxes are being put with live direct feed.
The
So
call
that's being
boxes
done at no cost to the
limits in
taxpayers.
at this
Yeah.
point.
So there'll never be not someone to talk to live, and that's being done right now, right? And so I
When's
guess...
that going to be finished? Do you know?
they're in the process, they're doing new system. It may be up and running now.
It's pretty extensive.
I've been in the building for the last week and a half. The company that's doing it, they're putting cameras and camera systems, and so the connectivity with dispatch will be
And so,
real time.
there's many departments that actually never have anyone there, that they just use electronics. So we have the benefit of having that personnel there, no additional cost to have a person. And here's Mr. Crowther back. Thank you, Mr. Crowther.
So the part-time telecommunicators are a T2, and the range is 1513 to 1891, and she's currently at 17. And the position the chief is looking to fill is a T4, the range is 1732, and the third step will be 1819. So she'd be picking up $1.19 an hour.
Okay, that's within a good window, I think.
You good, Cindy?
I'm good.
And Sue, is that good for you? Did you
Yeah, I
get
just
this?
want to get the motion going, okay,
Well,
so,
once I have some questions, if it's all right with you.
what,
Oh, you're preparing
I
for the
want-
motion?
yeah.
Okay, that's all I was asking, that you have what you need.
what step is it that she's going to be at?
T4, step 3.
Step T?
T4,
Yeah.
Step three.
And Mr. Crowther, would this position call for a one-year probationary period? right?
It does, yep.
So that'd be part of the motion too, Sue, you don't mind? Is there anything else we need to include, Chief or Mr. Crowther, in that motion besides that?
I don't think so.
If it's all right with everyone here, I'll ask Sue at this time to give us a motion on the appointment.
I move that we appoint Amy Wolfgang as administrative assistant to the police chief, bringing her in on a T4, step 3, with a one-year probationary period.
Second.
Motion's been made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Chief, now, moving on to the first thing you had, the deputy chief, please.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I provided you with a spreadsheet which can be a little overwhelming. It has a lot of information and tried to put it as easy to read as possible. But as you go across, you'll see on the left it's the current lieutenant's position, and then the other two positions as you follow the proposed district under deputy chief and then the proposed lieutenant.
I'm sorry, did you want to start with this, the overview, or?
Well,
That's
just one second, please.
Isn't it,
Well, 1 second, please.
could I ask you?
Absolutely, but just so that we keep the flow here, let me just move so that we, okay? Thank you. Chief, can I interrupt you, please? Sue, would you like to speak at this time?
Please.
Thank you.
What, at our last, when we had the discussion the last time,
About what? The deputy chief's position?
yes.
Okay.
And the chief said that he was interested in opening that position, filling that position. There was no discussion at that time about changing the job descriptions and whatnot. That's come about probably since you started looking at it in more depth.
Yes, I mean, maybe what was obvious to me, and I apologize, but when you create a position like that, the other positions and their responsibilities are going to change.
But that's my point. It's not creating the deputy position. That was already created.
Yes,
Okay?
yes, it was in
What you're
place.
suggesting, according to this, is a change in both job descriptions.
Yes.
And he said that would be part of his work that he was getting.
That's what I was expecting.
So he had said that at the last meeting, that that's what his intent was to do.
I don't remember a change in description of
remember it, Cindy?
lieutenant coming up. I
I
remember...
think we were talking about reorganization, which is what,
We didn't include that.
that it would be
My
required.
point is that if we're talking about this in the framework of an overall reorganization, I just simply thought that giving us the framework first, instead of jumping into the detail, was the only suggestion I was making. I feel like I was not expecting a rewrite of two job descriptions. based on what we had talked about. I was expecting why you wanted to hire somebody to fill the deputy position. So I just want you to fill that in for me. And that's why I thought, when I got this tonight, that made more sense to kind of give an overview.
Okay, Cindy, I will turn to you second, but I have a full, this is what I expected to come forth, to tell you the truth, so I'm comfortable with it. Go ahead, Jim.
I think something that might help frame it is, both of the job descriptions, deputy chief and lieutenant, as they currently exist, have never been filled at the same time.
That's true.
So what you have is, when you look at it, you have things that the deputy chief, when it was Dave Prophet, used to be in charge of IA, used to be in charge of accreditation
That's right.
as the second in command. When the deputy chief position wasn't filled, the lieutenant's position had to have been, I would have to look back, but had to have been adjusted in terms of what the job description said to accommodate, it had to have, Sue, because it says the same things that the deputy chief job description
I
say.
think it was the opposite, but it comes out the same.
It couldn't have been the opposite, because there was,
Never both positions at the same time.
No, what I mean is the lieutenant's responsibilities, Dave
Well, at
Prophet's, never really changed. The job description, the job title was what changed, okay? So it went the other way. But it doesn't really matter. I see what your issue then is, having both at the same
right,
time.
you can't have both of them doing the same job description.
And what we would need to do then, if we're changing job descriptions, is go through that process for the change of job descriptions that's described in the matrix.
And it may be...
We have a policy on that.
Right, and it may be, and I don't know, it may be that the proposed deputy chief job description is the existing deputy chief's job description, or is it not? Where you write proposed deputy chief in the middle column, does that reflect what the existing deputy chief's job description looks like?
I could not find that job description.
We do have a little problem with some records not being in our possession at the police department, so hopefully that's not the case. If I could just suggest the rest of the board is, could we please just let the chief give his presentation, and we could take notes for any questions that he has. I just think we'll never get to where we want to be, so with all due respect, chief, if you could give us your presentation, and we'll take notes of questions we have, and I'll go to the two board members, and Mr. Crowler, and to you, once you do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I put down a lot of my notes, so I'll be reading some. I don't want to miss anything. But I am requesting permission to fill the deputy chief position that is currently vacant. It still appears on the books. I provided you with two different files. The first is the current lieutenant job description, as we've just been talking about, as written, and other file lists, critical issues that I've identified in the department. The change I'm proposing addresses the needs of the day-to-day operations of the police department. I'm able to complete the change, I believe, within the existing budget. The change allows me to put duties and responsibilities in a manner that address patrol supervision and the needed functions within the department, many of which have not been addressed properly. I'll review the documents I've provided. The first is the spreadsheet that you have. The three columns would explain what those are. Based on my evaluation, the department is deficient in many areas, as mentioned in public meetings, members needing training, some are not prepared for leadership roles. These are things that have been discussed with this board. I've highlighted several paragraphs in your printed version of the job description. You'll notice that I have separated the patrol duties from the duties of accreditation, internal affairs, research and planning, compiling data, field training, specialized training, monthly grant reports, and court responsibilities. These duties will now fall under the deputy chief if approved. The position of lieutenant will now become responsible for supervision and coordination of all the sergeants, patrol officers, reserve officers. The lieutenant will also be responsible for overseeing in-service training, requirements for sworn personnel, including firearms, defensive tactics, and fleet. This description, the second is a description of gaps that I've identified at the police department. This document is a work in progress, therefore labeled as a draft. There's a clear delineation of the tasking from patrol oversight for lieutenant and operations and administration for the deputy. Currently, those are all being performed by that one position. It's too much, and as you may or may not know, patrol is an area within the police department that needs good supervision. That's generally, if there's going to be issues, they will come out of the patrol division just because of the nature of what they do and the amount of training that they need and oversight. The separation of the assignments will allow each position to contribute to the day-to-day operations and provide for supervision of patrol at a higher level. I'm sure it's hard for the community to hear that the department needs this work, but that is the reality. There are a lot of good police officers in the police department, and what I'm suggesting will help them have fulfilling careers. My goal, by distributing the workload, is to allow department members the time to do their job while placing additional emphasis on the importance of patrol. And looking into the future, it will also, I think, allow members of the police department to grow, to learn, and be able to attain command positions in the future, so that the climbing through the ranks will be done by folks that have worked here their entire careers, rather than bringing outside people in because there's deficiency at certain levels. I've given a lot of thought and consideration about this. In the time I've been here, my experience as a police chief and a consultant, I truly believe this is what's best for the department.
Are you all set, Chief?
Yes.
Thank you. Sue, do you have any questions at this time?
Well, I do have questions, but finish.
You just said he was finished. I just
You're
asked.
totally finished?
I am.
Okay.
I'm not. The only thing I can do is read to you what you have in front of you.
Oh, okay, so the question that I have is about shifts, and I'm not that great on this stuff, but what do we have, like 3 different shifts that,
We do.
okay, so,
I would call them, to make it easy, first shift, second shift, third shift, days, mid, nights.
okay, so day would be what, 7?
7. It's 6:45 to 4:40, 2:45.
Okay, so
They go in
7,
8-hour intervals.
almost like a hospital shift
Yes.
typically is. And what I'm hearing, and I think I'm hearing anyway, is that you're going to, number one, not fill that sergeant position, at least for this year.
The open sergeant position, that's correct.
Position, to make money for, to use that money instead for filling the deputy chief position.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm understanding it correctly, the first shift, as you call it, the 7 to
Yes.
mid-afternoon, you'll be in the office, the deputy chief will be in the office.
Yes.
You're suggesting then that the lieutenant will be nights,
Working a second shift.
the second shift or the third shift?
Second shift.
Second shift. So that would be 4 to midnight?
In that area, 3 to
Okay.
11, 4 to midnight.
Well, 3 to 11.
And given the position, that's a salaried position, there can be flexibility in that when needed and if needed,
Okay.
as it is with all of us.
Okay, and then, pardon my ignorance on it, but if you've got supervision for the patrol officers first and second, third shift, there's no
Third shift,
set?
there's 2 officers. There's not a supervisor for third shift.
So what happens if something happens and,
They can call a supervisor. Supervisors are always available to come in. I live in town. They can call me. Quite honestly, if you were to read our logs, and not that anything can happen any time of the day, I understand that.
And that's what I'm-
more than anybody. And that's why we always have 2 persons on. The call load from 11 at night till 7 in the morning does not tell you should have 2 police officers.
okay.
But and it's an industry standard, one officer by themselves is not a comfortable feeling, it's not safe. So there are 2 officers on at all times.
What are the ranks of those officers generally working the
Late night
11/7?
shift, they're patrol officers, both patrol officers,
So there'd be no change.
no change.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So your sergeants are going to be working the day shift, that first shift, and it'll be patrol people only in that midnight shift.
One of the good things is we have a lot of tenured people on the department. So there's generally a person that works late nights that has more experience than others.
What do you see as the downside, if any, for eliminating or not filling that sergeant position?
I don't see a downfall to it. I think the lieutenant, in the capacity that they are on second shift, will have the time to be able to do some supervision as well. And I think that that's a perfect place for it. The second shift is the busiest time for a police department. It's the time when most serious offenses happen. So to have the higher level of supervision there, the sergeants can be adjusted to work those 2 shifts, but to cover the gaps as well.
And we don't have a detective, you said that the last time.
We do not, there's not enough call for it to assign one person to be a detective. There are several officers that take on those responsibilities when we have investigations, and those are officers that have detective experience. So if there's something major, then they'll step into that role, and then we'll just have to backfill if their position leaves a hole, a gap.
May I continue?
Absolutely, as long as we're being productive, absolutely.
So, I have to be honest with you, I don't have a totally comfortable feeling with it, because when I look at the numbers, it feels like we're a little top-heavy, and from a town safety perspective, I need you to help me feel more comfortable, okay? I mean, I'm looking at it as, okay, we're going to be down 1 sergeant, and those are the people that we see all the time around town. Help me feel comfortable.
Could I just intercede here, if you don't mind? I think we're going to have a lot of questions, but I think we're going to be asked the same questions. So if you could, at the end of us, answer these open questions, and if Sue doesn't feel it was answered, I certainly will give you another to address it. But I think if we just do an overview here, at the end, you can address, because we all may have the same concerns. So it'll be more efficient if you just see if the 3 of us have that, to address that as one. If at some point you don't feel it was addressed, Sue, I always go back to the board.
Or he could answer it now.
Well, but
You
again-
already had that question.
Well, I actually have an answer to it, so I want to be fair to...
I know, I have if I
Why don't we-
can address Sue?
Yes. Absolutely, go ahead.
Permission, if I could just address Sue. I have some questions that I think it would be helpful, I hope, that if I hit them up on my questions, and then defer back to you, that hopefully my questions will help.
And that's what my thing is, we might have some
I'm thinking
concerns.
that I might address, my concerns might address it from a different, I have some of the same concerns you have, but I want to come at it from a different direction, and hopefully it would help you.
Well, we can try.
I don't want to try to
This is
take
how
it away from you.
This is how it's normally done in this kind of
Yeah.
classification stuff. I've been involved in these in the past.
Rather than-
And I will always come back if during the presentation or the questions it's not
And,
answered.
this is
I
a
will-
serious thing. This is a
Absolutely.
big change, so I
Absolutely.
think that
We need to allow the
for all of us and
professionals
the
to understand
townspeople, that would
the
be
systemic
important for us to make
So
this change.
we'll take, if you go Cindy a little bit, and then we'll go back to Sue or whatever. I just want to not get bogged down in one area. Thank you.
I don't want to bore anybody too much, but I know that over the last few years, that, well, the last several years, there's been a number of changes to staffing and maybe not job descriptions, but what has occurred over at the police department. And I'm not saying that anybody's not done what they're supposed to do, but I know, before I was involved in town government, Deputy Chief Prophet I think he started this as Lieutenant Prophet when he was doing the certification. Can you tell me, or can anybody tell me when Dave Prophet left? What year that was? I don't care if it comes from the
I
audience.
believe it was 2014.
Okay. And
I don't know what time of year,
Okay,
but that's my
fine. I don't need the
understanding.
day. But I know, and I know he's very proud of it, and it just sticks in my mind that he came to the Board of Selectmen regularly to give the update on getting the police department certified. And it's my understanding, and I'm hearing it repeatedly, that when he retired,
That retired.
apparently 2014, so did the certification.
That retired with him, yes.
Nobody
His-
picked it
his-
up.
His work is there. I can see his work, what he was doing. And that's one of my goals is to revive that. That's a goal that we need to have. We need to be accredited.
And at some point over the last year, I mean, I've been on the board now about a year and a half, going on, it'll be 2 years in November, that when I found out that we weren't certified, it just blew me.
Well,
Because I know how much work
accreditation.
had been put into it. And I was really shocked. I didn't realize until I got on the board that no one picked it up after Dave Prophet. And at that time, he was deputy chief, I'm assuming at that time. And I know I believe he started it out when he was, before his position changed, but when I think of that, I think of that as a really measurable item to talk about leadership in management, command and control, that I'm assuming that the only reason that didn't get picked up was that there's just not staffing. I'm not talking an individual that didn't do their job or something, but that the job was not able to be done. That there was too much other business that needed to occur. I'm going to just make that assumption.
I wouldn't, I would have a different opinion of that.
Okay, you might.
Yeah.
Can I
I
just
don't-
have a seat for just a second? No.
Well, I'm really just trying to talk, I'm trying
I
to push
understand.
up the management.
I do understand what you're saying.
That these kind of things are critical on the long-term management of a police department in a town of our size, even though it may seem, and I felt this way at one time prior to me being involved in government, when we were doing lieutenants and deputy chiefs, like, oh, it sounds pretty top-heavy to me, but are we going to have any cops on the street? We've got lieutenants and sergeants, and who's in the cruiser? At the time, I'm not criticizing that now, I'm not, but I'm saying, when I first came on, I'm going to bore people to tears now. Back in the 80s, back in 1981, or 82, is when I became a dispatcher in this town. Chief May, there was one sergeant, it was Walter Beasy, and there were no lieutenants. Everybody else was an officer, and it was usually one cruiser, one cop and a cruiser. And there was a sergeant and a chief. See, it worked. But then over time, I know that would not work today. I know it wouldn't work today. Because I know that Townsend, even though our population is stabilized, it's actually dropped, but yet the business of policing, the traffic is more, there's so much more going on, there's so much more professionalism. There's the crime statistics I know have changed. Is what police need to do to protect us and to be responsible for a number of things that we don't even know about. That leadership and management are very important. And I'm really, as a selectman, I think I just think that the certification is critical. And you have to have the staff to do that. And it's an administrative staff. It can't be somebody sitting in a cruiser doing it on a notepad while they're doing radar on Main Street. You have to have management people doing management stuff, and you have to, I hate to bring up some of the things that have been going on in the last couple of years that we have some concerns about. They're there, but it takes leadership and supervision, and that's one of the reasons we brought you in. And your experience as with leadership, your teach leadership, your experience is huge, and we really need that. And I'm really impressed that you're coming to us so soon with such a strong leadership request to restructure it. I mean, it's risky for you to do this soon, but yet I can see where it's so important, and I'm reading the documentation you've given us. I see the one, this one. It talks about some of the things that aren't happening, that includes the certification and those things that we need that make us top-heavy, and dropping the one sergeant position. At first, when you first mentioned it last time, I was a little concerned about it, but in reality, budget-wise, that makes it important, but yet it makes the lieutenant a working supervisor, not behind a desk, and you have a deputy chief who's more management, who loosens you up to be able to do chief's job, which you're not having to do whatever the lieutenant can get to. If something does happen in town, we do have cops, regardless of what you're wearing on your collar, to get out there and do the job. We're not losing police officers by having managers being able to get us the grants. And I know grants haven't been done completely properly, and it's been kind of wishy-washy as to whether they have or not, but you've identified that some of the grants have not. There are more grants out there that we're missing out on. And that really makes a difference to the budget, and it pays for some of the leadership that you're asking for. So,
And just to address some of the things that you said, if a lieutenant, I wear a uniform almost every day, unless I'm going someplace where I feel I'll wear a suit, but 95% of the time you'll see me in a uniform. And the main reason I do that is because we're not that busy, but we can become very busy very quickly. And I'll go out, I get out of the building from time to time. I don't like sitting in a desk all day, but that's my job. But I get out, and if I hear that one unit's tied up and it's kind of a busy day, then I'll head out and I'll get in the cruiser and I'll drive around. So if the other unit gets sent to something that requires 2 officers, I'll back them up. You know, and I expect, if these positions are granted, that those 2 positions will do the same thing. The lieutenant on a second shift, where it is generally busier, can put down paperwork that they're doing. I don't expect that position to be in a cruiser for 8 hours a day. They have supervisory work to do. But it's a short trip down the stairs and in the cruiser and out into the road, if needed. So they'll have radios, they'll be listening, but they'll be ready to go if they need to go. And that's important. So that's part of the strategy.
I'm satisfied.
Okay, and I'll just do a couple things, and I'm going to go back to Sue, if that's all right. Just to clarify, I have a basis knowledge, how much knowledge I have that's subject to interpretation. But what's not subject to interpretation is that when we talk about accreditation, just so that for the board members, but more for the public out there, is accreditation, and the chief will correct me, is that there's state and federal accreditation. And for a normal department, this is a task that usually takes a minimum of a year. And that's departments that have a functioning leadership, a functioning things, and they're not in crisis mode. More important than that, it's very common practice, and I know 3 towns in here, who many command officers during their retirement come back and are paid a consulting fee just because the task for accreditation is so overwhelming that they come in and literally will sit for 8 hours doing every policy and procedures, and that will take up to a year, and that's usually in the figures between $10,000 and $25,000. So I want to put it right out there, folks. Even if we had leadership in all areas, and if we weren't with the crisis mode we end, I think anything less than 2 years would be unreasonable for this chief here to have accreditation. But the good news is he has the capabilities to achieve that, but he needs the tools, and the tools starts with leadership. Right now, I think our departments, 80% of our problems over the past, and I think in particular one, starts with leadership. And during the last week, I had to review past documents that I was never privy of. It was on boards before I got here. And after reading that document, if you don't think there's a lack of leadership, all right, then you're wrong. We're bleeding for lack of leadership. We have the man here, he's asking for the tools to be more efficient. You've done that, how you reorganized. your administrator's position. The people are going to get more bang for the dollars, but also, as you've done through facts, you found out that 8 out of 10 people come in and want that service. You've done that. Now you're coming before us as professionals and say to us, I've looked over this, and you're very methodical. Sometimes I think you're slow, but I've come to learn that you're just methodical. And,
I'm not sure how to take that out.
no, you take it. Guess what? I throw compliments around like sewer covers, sir, and I'm giving you a compliment here, right?
I appreciate it.
And we all learn our styles, but the thing is, I know for a fact that you're truthful and you have integrity, all right? And that you don't check everything twice, you check it 3 times. And that's all right. We're just learning each other's style. But when you come before us, you've thought it out, you've reached out to your peers, you're doing national standards. Before you came to us, you used to go around the country solving big people's problems. So we're lucky to have you. We have problems here, and we're not going to discuss them tonight. But if anyone doesn't think we have leadership problems, they're in a different planet. We've had chiefs from across the state come in and say we have leadership problems. All right? There's more documentation on our leadership problems than we ever need to discuss. And the other thing is, the best supervision of mid-level, and correct me if I'm wrong, mid-level sergeants, lieutenants is called supervision by presence. So I know Sue was worried about coverage, and that's from the lay person in a town, one of the town CEOs here. That's a good question. But you need flexibility to say, okay, right now the 3 to 11 needs a little more assistance, and that's why you had to do the word day-to-day operations. But I know that you're going to tell, as you get to know these people, everyone has talents. There's talents we expect because we're paying you a lot of money, but then there's talents that you're just better at it because God gave you those gifts. That's your job to decide that. So I don't want to pin you down that this guy's going to be 3 to 11 this. It's about leadership. So I could go on and on. I want to thank you for this presentation. I think your ideas are a path so that the employees will be safe, the people will be safe, and they'll be proud again. We have a leadership crisis, and I'm going to turn to Sue this time. Thank you,
If
Sue.
I could just address
absolutely.
something you said, or do you want me to wait?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Part of what is happening now is the sergeants have taken on a lot of the responsibilities that keep them in that building. They spend a lot of time, fleet, training, court. They're in the building more than they're out of the building. And they're not being lazy and they're not hiding. They're doing work, but they're in the building.
Give me an example of what would keep them in the building.
Training, sergeant in charge of fleet, equipment, firearms.
Figure
The
identification.
court officer takes a lot of time, gone for a whole day when they go, have to prepare the casework. So there's those things that keep them in the building.
So just
And they don't get to be, they truly are not getting to be that first-line supervisor that is probably the most important position on the police department.
And if I could just intercede, because I get where you're going, and I apologize, but I think I can get to the chase so that we can understand your level. Is that part of a sergeant is the first-line supervisor is to constantly evaluate the performance of work, but also his safety conditions. Is he tactically correct? Is he intermediate? Well, you can't tell if a officer's using proper tactics or procedures from your desk. So you have to be out there. And the other thing is, he's another body. For that officer needs backup. He's closer. But and if we want to work with employees, some people are just naturally good. If they need work, the sergeant go to the lieutenant deputy chief and say, can we get some training for this? So it's called remedial. That's not a bad word. It's an ongoing process. So you want those your frontline supervisors. If they're not out there, they're doing things that are below what we're paying them, I think, a fair wage to have training. We send them to train. If they're doing tasks that could be done at a lesser level of expertise, that's not being efficient with the taxpayers' dollars.
All right.
Am I saying that right?
The sergeants will still have responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And they'll still, but not to the point that they spend more time inside than they do out, and it's not their fault.
And that was part of COPS grants going back, is that get officers out of it. Okay, Sue, do you have something? Cindy's going to go after you.
No, I just want to restate, my concern about certification is not just a document. I know when you have a certification, I'm going to assume that in your department, when you're certified, you have a series of binders that are sitting in a bookcase. It's got all the documents that make you certified, and you're inspected, and state or federal, you've got all these documents, and when everything's nice, dress, and pretty, it goes in a binder and it's sitting in a bookcase. But I don't see certification as that. You can't maintain a certification by, oh, we're just going to get certified, it's a piece of paper, we're going to throw it in a bookcase. It's a working document. The certification is nonsense. It includes policies and procedures, but it also includes enforcing them, and I know you've talked about going out testing.
Yes.
That your officers, all the way up and down the chain, including yourself, have to understand those policies and apply them, not say, oh, this is how I'm going to do it today. I know we have this thing in the bookcase, and I know that I initialed it when I started my annual review. I initialed all the policies, but yeah, this is how I know this is how I learned this in whatever town I worked for before, 10 years ago, this is how we do it. No, it's an ongoing process, because our certification will cease to exist, because it has to be a living, breathing document. And you can't have that. That's exactly what you have if you don't have the leadership to manage it, because it requires management, not just getting it done. I don't see a deputy chief position as getting the certification in order to fill the bookcase. You have to have all the levels of leadership to enforce it and make sure that the newest officer on the beat, as well as yourself, are up to date on this is what police procedure is. And police procedures change based on, we all watch TV, and Supreme Court decisions that, oh, does that apply to us? For sure they do. There's things we don't even know about, that court decisions that come down that change police procedures. And that's all based on certification. If police, everybody's not. But you need that management, and you need to. I like to focus. The certification is at your level, at my level. At somebody, we need that, because that's our only way that we can manage a police department. Who's working what shift is not my level. I know you don't. If with two sergeants you can't have, and with one lieutenant, and you can't put a sergeant 24/7. You can push them down so that there's a sergeant on occasionally, but that's day to day, and that's your job to determine the best way to provide police protection. And I know, living here for 30-something years, I know that when it's busier, but things can happen at 3 a.m. when you're down an officer too. But I just want to make that clear, that my certification thinking is not about just, getting a checklist done. It's a working document. And I think that needs to be for selectmen that are here 5 years from now, when I'm long gone off this board, that any selectman that's sitting here should have that as a minimum requirement for someone in your position, whether it's you or the next guy or woman, that's the minimum standard, that our police department should maintain that certification, is my personal opinion.
And that's the goal. And it's several things about accreditation is, one, it makes you take a look at your policies and best practices. And two, which is most important, it makes you keep up with changes. It's historically, police departments will take, and chiefs moving from police department to police department will often do this. They'll take their rules and regulations with them, and they'll change the name on the top, and it's all the same. And it's not specific to the department. Some are very similar. Some can be very different. So the accreditation does that. And it's important to stay updated and stay accredited, because they check on you to make sure you are staying. If you have that accreditation, and there's state accreditation, there's national accreditation. If you have that accreditation, they come and check on you. They'll come in and they'll pull a policy and check your policy so you can keep your accreditation. So there's a check and balance with it as well. And the training part of it that you talked about is, we're getting at that point, we're going to have to do that. It's important to train on them. And I think if I didn't explain it last time, I'll do it very quickly now. Everything will be categorized, every policy, by high risk and high use. Does it happen a lot? Is it frequency? Is the frequency high? Yes. Is the risk high? Yes. Then those are the policies that you train on first. Use of firearms, pursuits, all of those things that you read about in the paper that get police departments in trouble. And go through and you train on them all, and then you regularly train on them. And that's important.
Sorry, you want to go to Sue a second? That's all right.
Yeah, no, that's
All
fine.
right,
I just
I'm
wanted-
trying to be fair
I just wanted to be clear that...
and keep us moving.
This getting
I'm just
certification
gonna-
is not a checklist and we're done with it.
Just for clarity, I promise you real fast, 3 things, sometimes I say fast enough. There are going to be 3 quick things that I'm going to turn to Sue, so thank you. I'm just trying to make fair to everybody.
I don't
One,
mind spending a lot of time on this.
I don't either, I'm just
This is
trying,
very
but my
important.
job is to make
This is
sure
very-
everyone gets a fair thing at the table here. I try to do that.
But we're not bashful. We'll make
Well, that's good, and that's fine, and I don't have a problem with that, but guess what? I try to make an effort so everyone, but so we're efficient, and I'm learning that, but I think we're trying to do that. But my quick 3 things are, one, Cindy, people do a living about explaining accreditation. You did better at explaining that. I was following you about why we do that than people who do it for a living, so thank you for that. 2, just a clarification, where you said you liked where the chiefs went through testing stuff. Well, there's actually a way we call it. It's called a policy audit. You know how we do audit of our books and stuff like this? It's not to check up on people, it's just to make sure that we're doing it right. Audits, I love audits. So what he's talking about is that we're going to do policy audits, 1, and then the last thing I'll say is policy audits do 2 things. 1, to ensure that we're doing the correct training, correct type of training, but the other is our insurance companies, our legal teams, who have come to know us extensively, and unfortunately will know us a lot more in the near future, will not have to know as much if we have all those files and documents and signed off. They'll go, we're covered, we're golden, right? So there's always side benefits. We're investing in this, and long after we're gone, people are going to have a better job sitting up here because of these actions. Sue, thank you for your patience.
Again, getting back to the perception, if not reality, that this may be a little top-heavy for Townsend. I looked at other communities, and there are only a couple of other communities that have deputy chiefs. I believe Littleton has a deputy chief as well as a lieutenant, and I believe Groton has just a deputy chief.
And Westford has deputy chiefs.
I didn't look at Westford
Well, I'm
because
just,
it was well out of
every
our
town you want up, I just want to
demographics.
assist you. That's all.
Okay, let me go back, okay? Because I am used to working with databases and things like that, okay? So I looked at 21 communities that were within our population range. And I have all the numbers, and I'd be glad to share that with you,
I
Alan.
looked at many of them as well.
Okay, so what I looked at was population, which tells you some things, but it doesn't tell you a lot. I looked at the rate of growth over the last 10 years, and Townsend's growth has been at around 2.5% compared to a Littleton that, I don't want to bore you with numbers, but significantly more, okay? Groton, more. Pepperell is out of our league. They're well over us in population at this point. So I found it difficult to really get a handle on who are we most like, and are we going in the right direction here, okay? And when I looked at the numbers of officers, it seemed like we were light in terms of patrol and sergeants, and that's why I keep saying that. Even in the communities that are closer to our size, they tend to have more than we do. So I just want to share with you why that concerns me. Now, in terms of and you can just hold it and respond after. In terms of accreditation, I also looked at that, and my understanding is that the accreditation board, if you will, that's all voluntary on the part of the cities and towns, and I'm sure that's because they didn't want to make it a mandate, because then they'd have to fund it, okay? But, and I understand we already pay into that. I believe we already pay a fee to them.
Don't believe we're paying a fee at this time,
Okay.
because the accreditation was not completed, to my knowledge.
Are you talking state or federal accreditation?
State.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but there is a fee. when you,
To maintain your current, once you get accredited, you pay a yearly fee of $2,000.
And I believe
Okay,
that
that's
in the
different.
process, there can be a fee too, because they come in and they audit you in the process.
Okay,
Once you say to them, I want to be accredited, and the state is going to accredit me, the state accreditation agency. So you will make an agreement with them, and I don't know what it is here, I know what it is in New Hampshire, and I'm sure they're similar. Once you start your process, you are paying a fee, because they come in and assist and they audit as you go along. They don't just wait till you're done and then come in and figure out you've done 100 policies and they're all wrong. So they come in and they help you along the way, and they audit and your policies along the way. So I'm sure there is a fee for that. Nobody's going to
I'm
do that. for
concerned
nothing.
about your ability to help me not to be concerned. How are you going to juggle all these balls? Because you've got potentially a new person coming in with substantial responsibilities. One sounds like it's heavy on the accreditation seeking side.
Yes.
Who you're also giving some overall supervisory responsibility to. How are you going to juggle that with, because it's probably going to be at least a year process. I'm assuming, I know David had worked really hard on the policy, so that might need
It might cut it back a
some
little bit.
cleaning up.
But you've
I
also
would
got
say-
3 or 4
I would say
years
you're
of
probably
catching up.
talking at least a year.
I would assume at least.
At least a year. Okay, so if things are as concerning to you, as you have said, in terms of training and whatnot, how do you balance the two things? Because you can't wait for the accreditation to be complete before you do trainings.
Well, there's no such thing, you have to start accreditation until you're ready to start the process. Not to interrupt you, he would need some kind of counseling if he thought he was going to start doing accreditation with this department now. I think he's a year before he can even think about doing accreditation. We are such in a crisis mode now that he's about stabilization. He's in the emergency room, all right? I look at accreditation like we're going up to rehabilitation. He's in trauma mode with our department right now, and he's doing a good job, and with the people over there, he's going to make it happen. I think he'd be insane if he started accreditation before a year from now. He needs to fix the house and the leaks first.
Well, see, that's my concern, because
That's
when
why
I
he
heard
needs a
Cindy
leadership.
talking,
But
it
she's
sounded
talking
a lot
long-term.
more urgent.
Well, it's urgent to have a goal to attain that we could dream about having accreditation. It's a fallacy now to think we're even close to accreditation now. We were one of 3 towns that 6 months ago were going to be decertified for 911. 351 towns, and we're one of 3 who are going to lose our certification for 911. We're in crisis mode. Thank God we have a guy who can bring leadership.
What I would expect is, we're looking at the policies, and I want to start training on the policies. You can do that before you become accredited. And when you're looking at them, myself or the lieutenant, or if there's a deputy chief, people who have looked at policies a lot during their lifetime can look and say, there's something glaringly wrong here. And you can change them as you go. You don't have to wait until you start the process. And I don't know when the process would start, but it should start as soon as we are able to. And that's part of the process of having an extra administrative person. But like I said before, that person is not tied to that seat.
Okay,
It's
but-
important with an agency this size.
So when would you envision beginning on that kind of accreditation process? I mean, I know you're going to review policies, I know you're going to start, because you've got to take care of today, too.
Yes.
And that's what I'm concerned with, is taking care of today. Because if it's as concerning as you say it is, that means, basically, I want to hear from you, what are your plans for training now? What are you doing to implement some of the things that need to be implemented to address those concerns? You know, because administrative, I'm sorry, that's not as important to me. Safety is more important. Okay, and I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I remember you saying, and I believe you said it sincerely, was that you wanted to bring healing to the town and to the department. And I apologize too, because I really think that our group, our board, needs to sit with you and say, what are the priorities and what are your goals and objectives? And we have not done that, and that's shame on us. So maybe we can plan on doing that pretty quickly.
Well, Stacey, I absolutely will be bringing every department head on a monthly basis. But to say shame on us when he's in a crisis mode, I don't think he knows what his objectives are. He's getting off facts now. So I take a little offense to say shame on us. I and I believe Cindy, and I don't know what you've been doing, devoted my life the last year to trying to provide the opportunity to stabilize there. So I agree, I want to have the chief and every department head come back here and say what his goals are, so that as the town leaders, we understand that. But I take offense to say shame on us.
No,
All right.
you're not understanding me.
Again,
Let me
let me finish
clarify.
here, please. I take offense to shame on us. We've been doing everything in our power to have a person here to give us leadership. Thank you. Back
When
to
you
you, Sue.
hire an employee, typically, you would sit down with them shortly thereafter and have a discussion
And I have.
about goals and objectives. I'm sorry, you did not do that as a board member.
You weren't here when I was, and then, but the other point is, every step of the way,
Excuse me?
I'm the liaison to the police department. I don't meet on a daily basis.
Okay.
I have had conversations. I welcome to bring the chief back to have these discussions, but please don't say shame on us.
Okay.
That's all I'm
Gordy,
asking you.
you're
I
going to
don't-
need to let me talk.
And I do, Sue. Again, just please don't make accusations saying shame on you. That's all I'm asking you. Thank you very much.
I am saying that the board, meeting in a board meeting, should be doing this publicly and discussing what our priorities are and giving direction to our employees.
And I agree with you, and I said we're going to bring
And
him
we
back.
have not done that. I can understand he has goals, and we're going to have to listen to what those goals are, just like we are tonight. But that's based on his assessment of things. What I'm saying is, based on his assessment, what are our joint priorities and what are our goals and objectives for our police chief? And we have not done that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
If you have individually, that's fine, but you cannot speak, even if you're a liaison, as a board member, and give direction to an
I've
employee.
given no direction to anyone.
Okay, so
As
I
you do-
just want to be
as-
clear on
No,
that.
let's just be more clear, all right? Is, as you say, you do research on your own. I've done research of my own, so that when I come, I can be more informed, as I'm sure you do.
That's right.
But please don't tell me to be ashamed. That's all I'm asking you. Thank you.
I was
I'm-
apologizing to the chief on our
You
behalf.
said I should be ashamed. I'm
No,
not
I
ashamed.
said we should.
Well, I'm not ashamed. That's all I'm asking you.
Well, I think you should be. So anyway,
Well,
that's my
again,
opinion.
I ask you just not
That's
to
my
make personal
opinion.
generation about anyone on the board here, please. We could just keep it professional. I
Oh, It's
request.
not personal, Gordy.
I'm all set. Cindy, do you have any more questions?
Well, I have a couple things to say, and I want no one to take offense to this, including the chair. That, you know, Mr. Clark, I know you're a seasoned police officer, and you take personal much of what we're talking about. And it's probably very hard to hear anything that contradicts. So I'm kind of going to defend Sue a little bit.
You said Mr. Krieger, who are you talking to?
Clark. Did I say Clark?
No, you said Mr. Clark. And I don't take offense, I just don't like to say be ashamed.
No, well, I agree, no.
That's the only thing I had offense with.
I'm not addressing that.
Okay.
I'm not even
I'm
going
willing to
there.
listen to everyone.
I'm not even going there.
All right, because I don't
I'm
think
just
it's
saying,
appropriate telling me to be ashamed.
when anybody's talking about police operations, and it's, you know, a selectman, you know, we're not expected to.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's rare. Well, it's probably not that rare, but it's not typical that a seasoned cop is sitting on the board of selectmen.
Well, you were actually a policeman?
Well, I guess we'll do a question. The answer is, I am still currently a certified Massachusetts police officer. I was a sheriff at Captain's Range, you
I
probably
knew
know that
that.
if you read my bio.
Yeah.
But I also trained at police academies and stuff, but I'm not here as a police officer today. We all come with life experiences, all right?
Right, but-
And that's what I'm doing.
My intent is that-
So the answer is, yes, I am a
As board-
certified police
But
officer.
as a board, sometimes, I know things seem personal, but anyways, I want to talk about leadership and the difference between administration and leadership, and that leadership includes administration. And I know that when we can look at things and how things are supposed to be, as you were talking, Sue and Gordy and the chief, and we talk about trying to delineate what's administrative and what's office work and what's police work and what's leadership and management. And I remember when I was in the Army as a buck sergeant, I knew everything. I could run the company. I knew it. I knew everything. But then, when I finally got to be a first sergeant, I realized that I knew nothing when I had been a buck sergeant. And the last thing I wanted to do is have a bunch of new sergeants running the unit under me. I wanted to have senior NCOs in the sections or in the platoons that were under me, because it takes experience and it takes a lot of different leadership and a lot of different trainings that is not really describable, but you can look out at even ranks and say, okay, I understand what this person knows and I understand what is needed. And it's not, leadership is not administrative. There are administrative duties that come with leadership and there are management requirements, and we have this spreadsheet that the chief gave us that to delineate the differences between the lieutenant and the deputy chief. And it's not about breaking down office work, that all of them are out on the street, all of them are responsible for what's going on. And leadership is something that we desperately need here. I don't want to, I want to avoid attacking anything that's happened in the last few years. But going back a couple years, we've had a number of interim chiefs, we've had a number of problems that are still, we're trying to close out the last couple of years, and changes in personnel and issues that have occurred that I can't imagine that there's anybody that doesn't see this, all the problems that we've had in this town with the police department, that has not been about leadership and management and the things that getting a handle on the management and leadership issues at the department won't resolve. And sitting here on this board, we cannot sit here and micromanage what those details need to be. But we know that we have to get a handle on that before, on some issues, maybe we shouldn't have anybody out on the street until some of the leadership issues are addressed. But we can't do that. We can't go to that extreme. But I think we have a chief here who's addressing those and presenting to us, which makes perfect sense to me. Maybe it's just my background in military leadership that I understand that chain of command. I understand the difference between higher levels of management, and I learned, even the hard way, as I tried to express when I was a young sergeant, I knew everything. But then as I got seasoned, I said, well, there are different levels of leadership that, you become an officer, a non-commissioned officer. Oh, I know everything now. As things, leadership, it takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's not desk work, it's not office work, it's experience, and the certification is really a very important thing to me, because especially where we dropped that ball. But it has street skills included in it, and it's all connected. And I think it's important that we have to start at the top, because everything that I've seen that really disappoints me and saddens me from the things that have occurred here in our town. And I know there are people that criticize our board on how we're handled it, and I really don't care, because we're trying to fix it. But it's all about leadership, and we have to start. We have Chief Bailey here, and we have to start. If we need additional leadership more than we might be comfortable with, I think that's where we need to start, and work our way down, because we can't work from the bottom up, because that's where I think some of the failures are. But additional leadership, I think, would help us get to a point that we need to be to, is to be ethical, to be, to do the things that we need to do as a town and as a police department. And I really support bringing on the deputy chief as Chief Bailey is requesting, so that we can get the leadership taken care of, because we're not getting anything done if we don't.
Can I just say to both of the board members, thank you for your input for the last hour. We've heard from the board and from the chief. The one person we haven't heard from is the town administrator. Could you give us some input, and also how we go forward, what we need to do tonight or not do tonight?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'm not a police chief. I don't have police chief training. I would defer to Chief Bailey and his experience if he thinks that a lieutenant, being a line supervising lieutenant with admin responsibilities, and a deputy chief being the second command officer, is the structure that'll best suit us now, heading to the future. I would defer to that judgment. When you look at the economics of it, we're in an interesting situation where we have lieutenant's position that has a base of 89.9 right now, with an assumption of a 25% quin, which is what we know there exists. It goes to 112,375. You have the chief in at 125. So you would normally build a structure like this without people in the spots already earning money, because there are standard percentage differentials between ranks. Working backwards into this, you could see conceivably a 7.5% split between the lieutenant and the deputy chief, and then the deputy chief to chief, just a 5% split. That keeps the lieutenant whole, keeps the chief whole, and nestles the deputy chief position in at 96.7. If there's a full quin, which we would presume would be our goal, to have somebody that's master degreed, that put it at 120,803. There's funding sufficient within the budget currently to cover that. So my only two concerns would be, one, I would tell you that I would defer to the chief in terms of operations, and two, how do the economics work? And the chief and I can make them work.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I guess I'm looking to see if there's consensus or not to do this or not do this. I think Cindy indicated she may be to do that. I would be, and I'm not sure where Sue sits. Do we want to, how will we best handle this to see if we have...
I have a few more questions.
Okay, all right. I'll get right back to you, Sue. Thank you. But at some point, I just want to see how we determine if we're going to do this or not. So I'm going to go to Sue for a couple more questions. Thank you, Sue, for your patience.
In terms of what I think Jim was just bringing up, the policy that we have for reclassification, because that's almost what you'd be talking about if you're talking about making the numbers work, right?
No, I don't think so.
But you're talking about changing job descriptions, too.
Perhaps, but it would only be a reclassification if putting it through the system showed that it rated higher. My expectation is, having just spent some time with the chief this past week and then today going over the grid of the 3 columns, is that you're not going to see a marked change in the lieutenant's position. It won't require reclassification. The deputy chief's position hadn't been on the grid, to my knowledge. I don't know when Deputy Chief Prophet was here, if it was on the matrix.
No, he had a contract.
Right, so it was off the matrix at that point, so there wouldn't be a classification involved in that at all, because it's off the matrix.
He had a personal contract, is what they called it. It was actually a contract.
And he may have. I don't know that there's town, I know what you're dancing on there. There's no town meeting authorization to have made that legal.
I know, but you asked what it was, and that's what it was.
And I just further clarified by saying it was not a legal contract, that's all.
Well, I guess it depends on which way you read the law, too, because...
I read it straight on.
You can see it 2 different ways. Well, I just wanted to call your attention to the reclassification.
Yeah, I don't think that it will require that, so.
That we have a process that would want to go through. I want to share with you the numbers that I came up with, and I'd be glad to, I'll share it with the board. I did not bring enough copies, but
Would you like us to have someone make copies?
if you'd like.
Are you happy with like that? Okay, give us a moment here, thank you. Can we make enough for everybody? Jim, sure, appreciate that. Just give us a moment, please. Thank you both.
Because I did all of that, and I want to share it with you.
I appreciate that, and if I get the chance, I do have the goals and strategies of my proposal that I'd like to address.
Okay. Do you want to do that now?
I would rather wait for Mr. Crowley here so that we're all on the same page, if you don't mind, please. Thank you. It will be a couple of minutes. Thank you for your patience, as always.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
Staples along the way.
Okay. Cindy, you have a copy?
And I mean, I don't want to dwell on it, I just want to explain to you what I looked at.
That's fine.
Because I was looking at it from comparing it to other towns' perspective, because I had nothing else to judge it with, okay? So the page that says 10-year population growth, by the way, all of this data came from the DLS data, the Department of Revenue, in their database. So out of this group, on a ranking, population ranking from 32 to 52, which gave us a median growth rate of just over 7%. And Townsend falls at 2.48% growth, okay? So looking at it from the perspective of, do we need a larger police staff? Because we haven't really grown that much. So what's the impetus for it, is the question I was asking. And I don't have the answer to that. The next one is looking at the different communities in terms of the percentage of the levy that comes from residential versus commercial and industrial, just to kind of give a demographic about these towns as well. Then there's a 10-year population growth that I plotted with the median. And there are quite a few towns, us included, that are well below the median in terms of growth. And then the last one is police staffing for these communities. And I did surveys and called these communities to find out how many people they had in each position. And it just seems to me that we're a little light on the patrol side when you look at it. And that was why I was asking. That was what my concern was. Because I certainly don't want to outspend anybody. But on the other hand, I want to make sure that we have adequate coverage. So I'd be looking to you to just, not today, certainly. I wouldn't want you to try to digest it all and respond. But this is how the numbers look, and numbers are just numbers, but, and Gordy, I thank you for looking at that, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you for presenting it. We always welcome information. Are you all set, sir?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for that. It looks like it took a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And Chief, you have a copy, right? I do. All right, I'm sure you'll review that and probably have a conversation with Sue or the entire board.
I just have one other thing on accreditation, it's just a personal...
Sure, if I could just finish with him, and I'll go right back to you.
Bias,
It's all
yeah.
right. I just want to let you know that we, on a regular basis, try to bring all department heads in. But if you have a need to come back to us at any time, just talk to Mr. Prather, and I will do what we have to do to get you on the agenda, all right?
Mr. Chair,
And then I'm going to go back to Sue after you, all right?
thank you. On the data that Sue provided, I'd be happy to sit with the chief between now and your next meeting, and I mean, I've done a lot of this stuff as well, and the data is as good as the data you present. And what this doesn't talk about are what the underlying socioeconomics are in each of these communities as well. So I think it'd be important to do a little deeper dive into not just population growth. I mean, if we're seeing 20% growth
I looked at some of
in
the...
Rutland, is Rutland comparable? They're just things I think that'd be, I think another...
I was just looking at it in terms of linear.
Sure.
Okay, that was all. I did look at some of the economic factors too, but I kind of got bored doing it, actually.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just wanted to share what I had. I do have a question. Would you find it helpful if we, as a board, did plan to meet with you to talk about what we see as your goals and objectives for the next year?
I just told him to come back and...
Yeah,
I just asked him that before.
I have no problem with that. I think it's healthy to do that.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll agree on things, I'm sure we'll agree to disagree, but, no, I
Well,
think
it's a
it's
little
healthy.
different than what I thought you were saying, Gordy,
That's fine,
all.
absolutely.
Okay, so that's fine, but in terms of accreditation, I kind of have a bias for these quasi-governmental groups that the state puts together. I understand
I agree with you but I also...
philosophically, yes.
But I understand the importance of it, because law enforcement traditionally has not kept up with those things. If you get into an accreditation process, and that's why I say not national, but state, it's a lot less expensive, and it's a check and balance to make sure that you are where you should be, and it makes you look at your policies a little bit
But
different.
theoretically, if we had the discipline, we could do it ourselves.
We could.
Which
And
is
there are
why
many
the whole
places who will,
program
and
is
I
voluntary.
hope that we do.
Right.
But it's not, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Just philosophically, I have a problem with some of those quasi-government agencies because I think sometimes they're there to make the government agency.
I'll give you a personal experience. The department that I grew up in was the first in the state to be nationally accredited. And there were stickers all over the cars, and it was the day-to-day operations of that police department did not change because it was a good police department with good rules and regulations and good policies. They're still nationally accredited. It's not a bad thing, but it's the people who work every day that make that work or not work.
It's the leadership.
And quite honestly, yes, the leadership, but the leadership doesn't work without the people that really do the job every day. And
I wish I could say that I was 100% on board with this change. I still am not real comfortable with it. I don't know what would make me comfortable either. I wish I could tell you that.
I do have some goals and strategies that I could share with you on this, on my thoughts and my ideas. If that's appropriate.
You all set, sir?
Yeah, he asked to do this.
He wants to go over it.
He wants to go over his...
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue, for... I'm just trying to keep track of my things here. Thank you.
And this is a work in progress, but My goals in reorganization is to streamline the workflow between patrol, operations, and administration. So there's more defined areas of work to provide a higher level of accountability. I think that's extremely important in a law enforcement agency. Accountability keeps us from stepping in when we shouldn't be stepping in. It provides for superior officers' presence during more hours of the day, which is important for many reasons. One, for accountability, but two, for knowledge and supervision. It instills contemporary It will instill contemporary policing strategies into our operations. It'll allow for growth and development of members in the department. It provides training to fill gaps. It'll prepare department members for the future, which I think is extremely important. Nobody likes somebody coming from the outside to come into the police department. I know that. It's not comfortable. It'll help us update our procedures and operations and improve performance of the police department. The strategy is to hire an experienced police professional that has experience as a second in command and has been involved in the processes of accreditation, policies and procedures, training and mentoring. Finding the right person will be important, and that won't hire the wrong person. I would rather go without the person than hiring the wrong person. And I truly believe that, and that's my thought on this. It'll realign workload. It'll assign lieutenant as a working supervisor, which will give more supervision on that second shift. Have the ability for sergeants to be sergeants. Critical issues that have been identified is there is a lack of training for our command staff. They need to be better trained. We've started doing some of that. And it's not just going to the schools, it's bringing the information back and using it and talking about it with others who have had that experience. We can send them to all the schools they want to go to, but if they don't bring back the knowledge and share it and use it, it's worthless. There's a lack of a strategic plan. The plan that was in place didn't really include the community or other departments. It was limited department involvement from the police department. The plan needs to reflect the department and the community as one. And it's important to develop a strategic plan that meets those needs. We can't work in a vacuum as a police department. We need to work as part of the community. There's a lack of management controls for performance management. Data conversion occurred without proper archiving of the data. The old system, we're having a very hard time getting the data out of our old system. It hasn't been matched with the new system at Neshoba, which makes it very difficult to do that. There were ways that could have been done, but it wasn't. So we'll have to work backwards to try to make sure that our data is captured in one manner or another. Call for service categories in the old system didn't transfer into the new system. There's really not any effort placed into extracting the data from the old system and uploading it into the new system, like I just said. We don't collect data very well. We haven't been historically. So it's really, even when we have the data, it's not very useful. So we're working at creating better data and so we can use it to improve our policing strategies. There weren't any performance measures in place. Filing systems are difficult to find things in. They're not organized well. Performance evaluations have not been done for several years. That's a critical component of law enforcement, and that task has not been done in the last at least 3 years, and I believe probably more. Policies and procedures, many of them are out of date. As you talked about earlier, they were last done about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Many of them will probably still be up to date, but they haven't been looked at in depth to see what has changed and hasn't changed. There's been no training. I've talked about this on policies and procedures, which is important. It's a big book, and it has a lot of things in it. It needs to be constantly trained on. And looking past grants, one of the first things I did was look at grants to see what we had for grants. There were very few grants. The department had not put in for grants for several years. One $2,000 grant was received, but we hadn't been involved in traffic safety grants. Bulletproof vest grant that we had been mismanagement. It was running at the end of its time. We had a week left that we had to buy it. Make sure we got grants because there was a lot of money left in it that had never been expended. And had it not been expended, a lot of times they look at that, and if you don't spend money, they won't give you grants for other equipment. So we got that done right at the last minute. There has not really been a focus on career development and mentoring in the police department. Department members have had no career development plans in place. There's no formal mentoring program. It's informal. Informal is okay, but formal is better. You need to know what you're talking about and why you're talking about it and who you're talking about it with. And the FTO program needs to be reviewed and updated.
The what?
FTO, Field Training Officer Program, I'm sorry. I tried not to use acronyms. And some of the safety measures really were lacking, and corrective measures were required to take correction in some of the situations. Overall, like I started, I think we have a good crew of people working in the police department. That's a huge plus. You have people who want to work, and I think that as we move forward, we have a lot of good talent on the police department. We just need to tap into it and expand on it and bring people up to where they need to be.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I would just ask for guidance so that we could decide where we're moving forward. If Mr. Crowley would have an idea what a proposed motion might be.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the document that the chief gave to you this evening that begins in bold with Townsend Police Department Reorganization Introduction. There's a fourth paragraph beginning in quotes, under the general direction of the chief of police, and it goes on. That paragraph would serve as the basis for an advertisement. And if it please the board, a motion to authorize the posting of the deputy chief's position for the Townsend Police Department, consistent with the discussion this evening, and that fourth paragraph in quotes to form the advertisement, and to establish the range such that it falls within the guidelines of the earlier details I offered. I'm going to struggle to see where I wrote them.
Well, you don't have to be totally exact on that anyway.
We'll get the range so it fits within the two positions as they're currently funded.
120,803 was...
That was including Quinn, so it was, I want to say it was 96 and change was the base, and then presuming a 25% Quinn, it would get up to the 120.
Just asking. So would you like to
96.
take his as read, or would you like to read whatever you're more easier or comfortable with, if you want to make the motion?
I'll do the motion.
Thank you very much for that.
I move that the board vote to approve a posting to fill the position of deputy chief using the fourth paragraph?
The first attached to two files is technically a paragraph.
Okay, yes, it is. Using the verbiage in the fourth paragraph for posting, and with the pay limits within the categories described.
Just point of order. Does that meet what you need to do?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm going to say no.
No. Let the record show Lizio, no. Clark and King, yes. 2-1. Thank you. Thank everyone for the hard work. It was on the two board members and on the chief and Mr. Kryler. I could tell a lot of work. You want to say anything, Mr.
Just
Kryler?
one final comment. Again, looking at the data that Sue presented this evening, I know there's a lot of work that goes into putting this stuff together, but I just spent a couple of minutes looking at it, and if you go across all 21 communities that are listed, and you look at the superior officers, so the brass, and then the patrol, using just full-time, so not getting into whether they're reserves or part-timers, the average of that group of communities that Sue cited for superior officers is 6 per community, and Townsend with the deputy chief, the lieutenant, and 2 sergeants, and the chief would be 5. The patrol officers, the average of the group is 9.4, and as cited here in the data, Townsend is 10. So we'd be light on brass and heavy on patrol against that group of comps.
Yeah, and the hard part with that, the part that I'd have to have a discussion with a police person is understanding the differences and all that reserve stuff, because to me that's playing around with budgets that it looks like to me with some of the communities might be doing. You know, it's a way to avoid overtime or whatever.
All right, everyone, thank you. And Chief, as the entire board has said, feel free. We may request you to come back, but if you have a need to come back, just speak to Mr. Kryler, and we'll do everything to facilitate that. So everyone, Sue and Cindy, Jim and the Chief, I want to thank you for all your diligent work. I know many, many hours went into this, and I think it's going to give us a basis to have leadership and to get us where we need to go. So thank you, Chief, again.
Thank you, I appreciate the time and the questions.
You're good on the grievance, you don't have to stay. I was wondering if she had to buy you food.
At this time,
5 minutes.
yes. At this time, I would take a motion to take a brief recess.
Move to recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made, move all in favor? Aye. We'll be in a brief recess. Harley? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Welcome, folks. We're back at approximately 7:57, back into session. Mr. Kryler, do you have anything before we start?
Yes, the next item on your agenda is annual appointments, and there's a see attached list. One thing that Sue and I were talking about during the break is whether going through the entire list and reading them or moving it as presented. I would draw your attention to the second page. There is actually, under Zoning Board of Appeals alternates, Victoria Janicki and John Page. There had been an issue raised earlier about a potential conflict for members of the board to vote on John, given the fact that he is representing clients in a matter against 2 members of the board, in opposition to 2 members of the board. So the question becomes, if they are spending money as board members, they have a financial interest in a matter. Therefore, they can't participate in a matter in which they have a financial interest. So if you're going to move the list, it would be move the list absent the name John Page, and that clears the list. Then the individual board members need to determine whether they're going to sit and vote or recuse themselves on Mr. Page.
So that has to do with exemption 19.
Correct.
And exemption 19 would require a recusal.
Correct. Unless somebody wants to roll the dice with a Section 19 violation.
And it also would require filling out a form for that incident, and that's it.
No, you could. An employee can get a Section 19 waiver. You can't.
No, I don't, not for a waiver, for actually putting in writing the disclosure. It's not a disclosure, it's a Section 19 recusal that needs to go in writing as well, as to why you did that.
I don't believe so, but there's nothing that harms it from being
yeah.
in writing. It'll be a matter of record in the minutes, so.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I suppose that'd be fine. So can one remaining person make that an aye vote?
Well, then it becomes a matter of parliamentary procedure.
Well,
If
it's not
there's-
just parliamentary procedure, isn't
It
it what's the other thing? A matter of necessity?
Recusals for financial interest, I don't believe qualify for the rule of necessity. I could take a minute and go
But
and look
if
at.
rule of necessity would allow the remaining member to vote on it.
But the point would be that there's not a quorum of the board seated to invoke the rule of necessity. The board, in effect, doesn't exist at the time of that vote because two members presumably would have recused themselves.
I don't know enough about that one.
I would, at this time, just putting it out there, I would not be opposed on that. They're taking no action, and to have town council advise us for the next meeting. To our options, not to tell us what to do, but to our options. I don't know how soon...
Council can't advise you on an issue with,
I would like to
within
know-
which you have a financial interest.
But I would like to
We
know...
can't ask town council for...
We can ask him if this happens if we have a legal quorum.
Yes, you can, Gordy's right, you can ask him what
rule of
happens
necessity.
if two people recuse and there's one person left.
We can save the money, and I can just go pull it up in the other room if you want to take a couple-minute recess and just do it tonight.
Actually, I would be comfortable putting it off. I don't see a necessity to do it tonight. But I don't know what the other two board members, so I will... I don't see the necessity. I'd rather do it right than do it fast.
Judicious, not expeditious.
Thank you for better words than I had known. But Cindy, your thoughts, and Sue, your thoughts?
I'd rather get it over with.
Okay,
We're doing
yes.
everything else.
All right.
Well, if Mr. Kreidler can go look it up then. On the rule of necessity. But I will be recusing myself on that particular point. I think I'm okay with everybody else. I don't see anybody else.
The only question I would ask is, what do you, to get a sound opinion, Mr. Crowder, what time frame? Due to that, I would like, you and me been here all day, and I would like to be out of here.
Well, you know what, while he's looking that up, we could vote on the others. Okay? Like, I could take them in sections,
All right, let me just
okay?
talk to Mr. So, let me just, so, he's gonna tell me how long he thinks it's gonna take. Or not.
Less than 5 minutes.
All right, so we're gonna,
We
if
got
it's all
another
right?
4-minute recess.
No. Why don't we sign all the others, and then we decide?
You've got a bunch of...
Can we do it without you being here?
Yeah, you've got referrals and...
All right, you know what, at this point, I'm asking the board, we're gonna go forward to 4.1.
Do you want to do the first
You want to do
part of this
3.2?
one? Of 3.1?
3.2?
Yes, that'd be fine. 3.2 at this point, and to reappoint Neil James McCourty as constable for a term effective August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. Do we have a motion on that?
Mr. Chair, I move that we reappoint Neil James McCourty as constable for a term effective August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
If I may, just with the board's indulgence here, just say subject to being a re-query check on that, please.
It's a reappointment.
That's right, but do we know what's happened with any individual since he was first appointed? Well, if you have a person out there, if you go for a renewal of a license to carry or any other thing, you do a recheck to make sure nothing's occurred in this person's life. I'm not saying something has, but we've gone the past where we
I've
did...
never seen it happen.
Well, and what I want to tell you, when I first came to the board, we did it the old way, and someone had a criminal record, until I asked them to stop, and so that's how I know about this.
Okay.
So-
Subject to a
Yeah.
positive
Really?
Yes, yes.
query inquiry.
No, just a re-query or something. You know.
Yeah.
All right, that's all.
Same thing.
Can I ask, Kelly, do you know anything about this?
I believe that Jim and the chief have discussed this, but it will be on
Okay, well,
Jim when
you
he
want
gets
to
back in to ask
just put
him
this
about
one
that.
off until Jim comes back?
This is why I don't like
I have a suggestion, can we go to 3.1 and we'll just do the other pieces of this? I can break it up into a couple
This was
motions.
my first idea was. All right.
I know.
All right.
We can do it in one, except for,
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
break
No,
it
it's
up.
all right, but here's the deal is that I would rather get it right. When I first came on, no, because he'll be stopped doing what he wants when we get done.
let him complete what he's doing.
Let's start.
We're going to go back to 3.1?
Yes, everything but the last, and then we'll make a determination.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
Let's do this in sections, okay?
Yep.
So I move that we appoint the election workers, which includes wardens, deputy wardens, clerks, ballot box clerks, inspectors, and counters, as written, for the term of August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's made, second, all in favor? Aye. With the record show it's unanimous. Do we
So
have another
that's for the
motion?
election workers section.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the appointment for the Energy Committee for a 3-year term to Edward Herman, 3-year term from August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we appoint David Chanel and, yep, David Chanel's a 1-year. Okay, David Chanel to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term of August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor? Aye. With the record show it's unanimous.
And to the Zoning Board of Appeals, I move that we appoint Robert Rebolts for a 2-year term, August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
With the record show it's unanimous.
And for Zoning Board of Appeals alternate for a 1-year term, Victoria Janicki, August 24th, 2017 to June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. With the record show it's unanimous. Mr. Kryler, do we get everybody on this that we're supposed to?
Except for that last.
Okay, I'm just, because
I know.
It's the Russian spelling.
Vlad.
Kelly's
Oh, they need an L in there. Make it the Russian spell. Vlad.
All right, Massachusetts State Ethics Commission Advisory 5-05 Rule of Necessity. The Rule of Necessity works as follows. Number 1, when used by an elected board member, the Rule of Necessity may be used only when an elected board is legally required to act on a matter and it lacks enough members. You're not legally required to act on the appointment, therefore the Rule of Necessity may not be invoked.
You're legally required in order to do an appointment.
You're not really-
You're not legally required to make an appointment. It would be if you have a liquor license violation and you have to legally respond. You could use Rule of Necessity because you have a legal responsibility to take that vote.
Okay. Well,
So do we need to officially recuse ourselves then? Because
do we do nothing?
we skipped everybody but John. Do we need to actually make it an official recusal tomorrow? Or just forget it?
I would at this point
I
ask,
think Gordy's right. Ask.
at this point, these are actions we're taking on abundance of caution. We're referring to town council for further guidance.
Just on process, not on your interest.
No, process, that's all.
And then, it's not, there also may be a thing about, besides affecting people besides me and Mrs. King.
I don't know that.
Can we take a 1-minute
actually-
recess, please? I need to, can we take, can I have a motion for 1-minute recess, please? No?
I'm wondering if I should not be able to vote on it either.
Don't know what. Oh.
What's your...
Well, I hate to tell you this.
Well, can I have a,
Well,
you know what, I think we should
Okay.
refer it to town council.
you know, I don't see the, I don't understand.
I know.
your two pieces.
I'm
But there's a
recusing
piece-
myself. I don't care what town council has to say because town town council's not my attorney on this civil matter, so.
Well, regardless of what council says, 2 members can't participate. The rule of necessity can't be invoked, so.
But
There's no need for
there may be another matter that involves the town.
It doesn't matter.
But if
That's not
it's already
relevant.
dead, it can't be double
I
dead.
just don't want to make any mistakes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying
And
that.
we're not even supposed to be in the room discussing it. if
I'm not
we're-
discussing
not.
anything.
Then you're not.
I'm not discussing
I'm
anything.
advising.
Can I move to pass over this,
Yes.
And,
No
well,
action.
to take no action?
No, do nothing.
see, you can't even second or vote on take no action because you're participating.
Do nothing.
It
Do
just,
nothing.
it sits there.
All right,
You can make a motion, it'll die from lack
Can
of
you
a
put it in
second.
the minutes? As far as I'm concerned, can you put in the minutes that I'm recusing myself from any conversation regarding the John Page appointment?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody else does.
And I'm saying nothing. All right? Simple as that. Except for that.
Actually, I think you can put it on the floor and then do the recusal.
You could, if somebody seconds your motion, which no one can second.
But, well, no, they can second
I want-
it.
I just
It's
want- No,
you
'cause
just
then they've
put it on the
participated.
floor.
I'm not doing it.
My participation is simply to ask that it go in the minutes.
Whatever.
Myself.
Okay.
That's it. I don't care what they do.
4.1,
Guess we're not touching it, huh?
vote to affirm proclamations for 4.1.1, Donald Keefe, 4.1.2, Eagle Scout Corey
Martineau.
Thank you for that. Ms. Lizio?
Both of these have been done. I think we just need to, well, first of all, congratulate both of them. But do you want me to read them both as well?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
I think it might be good to read them, just so people
Yeah,
can get a...
okay. I mean, I know they both received them, but that was because we didn't have a meeting, so. First of all, a proclamation for Donald Keefe. Donald Keefe was born August 13th, 1927. He's a lifelong resident of Townsend and a World War II veteran, and still takes part in our yearly Memorial Day Parade. Mr. Keefe graduated from Fitchburg Teachers College in 1952 with a BS in education, and spent his entire career in education in the Townsend school system from 1952 to 1987. He was involved in town activities throughout the years, such as donating his time to hold a grade 6 to 8 Saturday basketball league, donated his time, along with Bill and Carol Sims, to bring Little League to Townsend in the early 1950s, donated toward the organ to the First Congregational Church, donating the bandstand holiday lights, and donating his collection of 400-plus miniature and toy fire engines to our fire department. We now therefore, Gordon Clark, Cindy King, and Sue Licio, selectmen of the town of Townsend, declare in the Middlesex County in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, United States of America, do hereby proclaim August 17th, 2017 as Donald Keefe Day in the town of Townsend.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Just for the record, and also for Cindy and Sue, I went to the band concert last Thursday night, and I gave them a proclamation. And
that's right, this is-
there were many people who have actually traveled out of state to be there for Mr. Keefe that night, and I was quite impressed with that. Thank you, Sue.
It's a neat man.
Yes, he seemed like a very wonderful man.
Good teacher. And the second proclamation, the Boy Scouts of America offers an environment and association which fosters good citizenship, honesty, integrity, and diligence in our younger people. This is for Corey Martineau. Corey holds himself to these high moral and ethical standards in his everyday life, allowing him to develop into an outstanding young man and citizen. The practical aspects of scouting provide training for our youth in survival, independence, and a sense of loyalty to our country. Corey's patriotism shines through in his respect for veterans and his love of history. Corey is constantly taking in all that has happened in the different decades of our country, the USA. excuse me, Corey James Martineau, a member of the Boy Scout Troop 10 of Townsend, Massachusetts, having completed the requirements for and having been examined by an Eagle Scout Board of Review, was found worthy of the rank of Eagle Scout. He has proven himself at all Scout levels to be a person of both his heart and his word. Corey James Martineau has completed his Eagle Scout project, a sitting area at the Townsend Congregational Church Garden. This is an amazing gift given to his church congregation that they can all enjoy for years to come. Corey James Martineau is a recent National Honor Society graduate in both academics and trade of Neshoba Technical High School, Westford, Mass. Corey will be attending Johnson & Wales College in Rhode Island in September to pursue a career in culinary arts. The approach to and attainment of the Eagle rank is lengthy, detailed, and difficult. It requires intelligence, tenacity, determination, and a highly motivated desire to succeed. Corey has earned respect by showing respect and has taken on the above-listed qualities so he himself can teach others to do the same. Now, therefore, we, Gordon Clark, Cindy King, and Sue Licio, selectmen of the town of Townsend, Middlesex County, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim 8/2017 as Corey James Martineau Day.
Thank you for reading that. So did you go to that ceremony?
I did.
Well,
It
thank you
was
for
very
coming.
I'll
nice.
second that.
Motion's been made second. All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Sue Lizio, for attending. I'm going back, Mr. Kryler,
Yes.
specifically, where you were doing some research for us. We did 3.2, and Sue had read a motion to reappoint that gentleman. The only thing is I asked...
The chief confirmed that everything checked out.
Thank you.
So we're all set.
And I explained...
We just did it pending a positive Corey outcome.
Which has already been done. And I just explained to Sue, and I don't know if Cindy, she was here, is that the boards used to not do this before I came. And we actually found someone who we were going to give this power to who had allegedly a felony in the past. So all I'm asking is, nothing to do with this gentleman, just policy that we make sure nothing's occurred.
Absolutely.
We have obligation to make sure people out there doing process are suitable. So thank you for that. Thank you, Sue, for your patience in that matter. Moving on to, quickly here,
4-2.
yes, 4-2, please.
I move that the board, what do we usually do? No comment?
No comment, and thank the planning board for their consideration.
Thank the planning board for the mandatory referral regarding 83 Barker Hill Road, scenic road permit.
Second. Motion's been made second. All in favor? Aye. Just for the chairman here, as again, I try to be fair to everybody here, I would just assume that there's no comment, but always feel free, if you have, just to, you know what I'm saying, intercede. So in the future, if it's all right with you two, I'm just going to assume that that's the case, but I would always ask you if you have any input to interrupt me, okay? Thank you. 4.3.
I move that the board thank the planning board for the mandatory referral regarding 7 Trophy Ave driveway plan revision with no comment.
Second. Motion's been made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. 4.4, please.
I move that the board sign a one-day liquor license for VFW Post 6538, 491 Main Street, Townsend, on August 22nd, with sale hours from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. in conjunction with the 70th birthday.
Okay.
Did that cut off?
I think
It says August 26th.
right here. I think it's the 26th.
Okay, make that August 26th,
Thank you. Do we have a second?
2017.
Motion's been made second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. 4.4.1. Am I right? Yes. No? 4.4.2.
Yes, 2. I move that we...
We have 2 versions of the agenda.
that the board approve and sign a one-day
No,
liquor license,
they're coming up with different dates here.
a one-day liquor license for September 30th, 2017, with sale hours from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. in conjunction with a birthday party.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Next one, please. If we have any more.
I move that we approve and sign a one-day liquor license for VFW Post 6538, 491 Main Street, Townsend, on October 27th, with sale hours from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. in conjunction with the 60th birthday party.
Second? Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Next, please. Wow.
4.5, I move that the board approve a road opening permit for a gas leak repair at the intersection of Capricorn Lane and Ash Street.
Second motion's made, second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Next, please.
I move that the board approve a road opening permit regarding 120 Turnpike Road for cable installation.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show it's unanimous.
I move that the board sign a Chapter 90, approve and sign a Chapter 90 project request regarding Old Meeting House Road in the amount of $159,686.
We have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show on Meeting House Road it's unanimous vote. Thank you. Next.
I move that the board sign a Chapter 90 project request regarding Mason Road in the amount of $254,380.
Second.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous.
I move that the board approve and sign a Chapter 90 project request regarding Mill and resurface Mason and Proctor roads in the amount of $145,496.53.
Second.
Motion's been made second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous.
I move that the board approve and sign a Chapter 90 project reimbursement request regarding mill and resurface of Mason Road in the amount of $109,315.87.
Second.
Motion's been made second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous.
Excuse me, I move that the board approve and sign a Chapter 90 final report regarding Tack Mason and Proctor Road in the amount of $733.34.
Second.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. And for the board, the only downside to having a summer schedule is that Sue gets to read for a half hour. So. Well, motion right to fill it up.
I don't
Okay.
miss that job.
No, yes, and I will never take it
I
back.
actually don't.
I get seniority,
If,
by not having to do
Yes,
that
can
anymore.
not to mix these up, these are the ones that everyone signed but you, so whenever you have a chance. I just want to mix them up with everything else.
Oh, sure, and
And
what's
then-
me reading?
I'll just wait till the end.
Yes, I know that, but I was just saying, so,
Yeah,
and
I
then,
don't wanna get-
once
you're
you're
gonna call
done.
us tomorrow.
That's what I mean, I'm not sending these down, I'm gonna do them after.
Okay, so Sue's going to sign the last signature. When she has a chance, she's got a lot going on here.
Then we're gonna have more
And then
later.
you're going to take these, all right?
Then we have
Well,
more.
there's too many papers here, I don't need them mixed up. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're going on now to,
Town Minister's report.
thank you, 5.1.
But I can sign my gym top.
Thank you. Town administrators, updates and reports.
5.11, Fire Chief Declaration of Surplus Equipment. The Fire Chief has submitted the following memo, respectfully requesting the Board of Selectmen declare the following items surplus to be sold or recycled. Number 1, used dishwasher. Number 2, used bedroom furniture. Number 3, used 1978 2500-watt Generac generator. Number 4, used Honda generator. Number 5, 5 Circle D fire scene lights. Number 6, 20 shovels. Number 7, 2 brush fire water can backpacks. Number 8, assorted valves. 9, assorted nozzles. 10, assorted adapters. 11, electric powered smoke ejector with wireframe air pack. 12, hard suction hose. 13, assorted red lights. 14, gas powered smoke ejector. 15, hose reel. 16, assorted brackets. 17, vehicle wiring. 18, assorted parts from a 1970 vintage forestry truck. 19, 5 aluminum ladders and 1 folding tank frame. And lastly, 20, a vintage foam pump.
Thank you.
Is there anything left over there?
Sign, just
That's a lot of stuff.
do a check to make sure you
How
got
do they
everything back you wanted.
And he does have pictures attached if you're interested in
wow.
looking at
Great.
Only out of curiosity.
So do you need a motion on that?
Yes.
As listed by Town Administrator Crown.
So
Wow.
I move that the board declare the list read by Mr. Kreidler as surplus from the fire department.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Aye, let the record show it's unanimous. Thank you for that.
What's he going to do with all this?
He's going to put it out to bid first, and if there are any takers, make a nickel, and if not, then it will be disposed of as recycled.
So all of the values
Will
are
this be publicly,
Yeah.
minimal,
local,
right?
on our website kind of thing, so people can go look at it and say?
Absolutely.
Okay, 5.1.2.
Yes,
Mr.
next we
Crowder
have,
has 5 things there.
Yeah, a variety of policies that have been before us in one sense or another, and I just wanted to give either updates or seek guidance. The first is request for information and request for agenda items. There's been some question in the last couple of months about how agenda items get on and how they don't. There is an existing policy that talks about that within the Selectmen's Policy and Procedure Handbook. This is one that I found on file that it wasn't clear to me that it had ever been actually adopted or voted, but it does go into a greater degree of detail on not only how to put things on the agenda, but also how to get information generally from employees as members of the board. So I just wanted to see if this is alive, dead, or otherwise, and otherwise being, if it's dead, do you want it alive, or if it's alive, do you want it dead?
Is it in my packet?
It is, yeah.
You all set, Mr. Crowder?
Well, I just wanted to get some guidance on that from members and see if anybody has a thought.
Okay, Sue,
Question?
go ahead.
Mr. Kreidler, what do you think?
I think it's a bit of a sledgehammer in terms of what's needed.
You think the one that we have already in the book is okay?
I think the one in the book could be tightened more in this direction,
Then
but I
why-
think this is overkill.
Could we suggest that the town administrator take a look at it and try to marry the two?
Cindy, your thoughts?
I'd like to keep it easy, but I don't want us to be overbearing on, I mean, we need to find a happy medium.
Okay,
And
so,
something that's going to, well, I talked briefly with Jim earlier about some of the policies, and that just a short time I've been on the board, every time you have a new member of the board, it changes in personality a little bit and how everybody wants things to be done a little bit differently. And I'm sure whatever policy we come up with, the next board, which could be in April, every April, there could be recommended changes to almost every policy that we set for the conduct of selectmen. So I think at a minimum, if we just agree, something that we can, that's only going to last for the three of us even, just, how do we conduct business? How do we engage with employees? How do we get things on the agenda? And the other policies as well. How are we going to conduct ourselves and make everybody happy? That's my only concern. And
So-
I'd like to just turn to the town administrator as probably the best judge of when are we outside of our realm of where we should be and what works.
Yeah.
so listening to Sue and to Cindy, I get the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, and I would be all right with this, that we ask the town administrator to do some work on this and come back to us, what he thought might be working with the current board. Is that what you...
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, Cindy, does that sound all right to you?
Excellent. So that's on both counts, then there's request for information and request for agenda items. I'll look at both of those pieces against our existing policy.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to help if you need it too.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you both, and thank you, Mr. Kryler.
Next is the use of legal counsel form. This is one that Sue and I had worked on a little while ago and just wanted to get back in front of you. There is a copy in your packets. What you see underlined are areas that are new and being proposed. So what you have is all other boards and commissions must have a vote authorizing the request before authorization will be provided to access counsel. And then the sole exceptions to this rule are for the Board of Selectmen and are as follow. Number one, an introductory meeting with counsel upon election to the board. So there shouldn't need to be, the thought behind this is there shouldn't need to be approvals granted for a new board member to get brought up to speed by counsel. Number two, brief discussions or questions related to board business that take no more than 5 minutes of billable time. In my experience, I've never seen something take less than 5 minutes in billable time.
Oh, I did that.
Was it just hello?
Okay.
Lawyers can't talk that slow.
And on number 3 on that, do you have any comment on
Number 3 is important, that the policy right now requires that the request go through the town administrator, but it may be that there's an action the board needs to take with counsel related to the town administrator, so you shouldn't be having to go through the TA to get access to counsel to deal with the TA. So there should be a carve-out, but the way this is written isn't good enough, and Sue, help me, I think it was matters that involve the TA, which would then only require authorization from the chairman. So you couldn't get authorization from the chair unless you were at a meeting, and there may be something in between meetings where you need to do something.
Well, no, it was even worse than that, okay? You're not the chair,
Yeah.
but somebody makes a complaint, let's say, against the town administrator to that board member. That board member is not allowed to talk about it with the other board members without notifying the person about whom the complaint is being made.
For a good reason.
Exactly, okay? So you're in a situation where the only one that you can turn to is town council.
No, you hold a meeting of the board,
an executive
and you give the
session.
person notice the way the law reads.
I know, but what happened, and this really happened, was, first of all, is this a complaint that we need to take seriously? Okay? I mean, I'm reading it as a complaint, but I don't know if other people would read it that way. And it wasn't something I could talk to the TA about. Sure. Okay, so I couldn't talk to the other board members, even if I asked for it to be an agenda item and talk to them in executive session, then I would have to know how to give notice to the employee about whom that was.
But that's easy. The exemption for an executive session is to hear complaints or charges against an employee or an official. So regardless of what it was about, if it's a complaint, then notice
So
would be given.
would I ask you to write up the agenda and notify yourself?
I've seen that actually happen here.
Really?
I have.
Yes, we have.
You've actually,
We've done it.
not since I've been here, but I've seen the file where it's, somebody has written the notice on behalf of the board to themselves. But, I mean, it doesn't need to happen that way. I would presume if it's a complaint
Well,
that,
hell, when something like that happens, I want to talk to town council. I'm sorry. I just,
Okay.
Okay,
you
so
just got to
that,
figure out how to do that, because quite honestly, as the town administrator currently seated, I would not think it fair or appropriate to have individual members hearing a concern or a complaint in the community about my performance and not have it first brought to my attention so I can address it.
oh, no,
And
no.
instead have it go out to council.
It wasn't as simple as that. It was not as simple as that. It was a serious accusation, and no.
I think an existing policy you have in your board policy says that complaints...
It wasn't a complaint like, I don't like the way you talk to me. Do you know what I mean? No.
Let me ask, I apologize if I sound like I'm ignorant of open meeting law. but let's say, I mean, Sue's coming up with a scenario, you have a scenario in your mind.
No, I have a real-life scenario that happened to me when I was on the board.
Okay. And you can't...
And I had no other choice but to go to town council.
All right, can I just
Were you
suggest
a
this?
chair?
No.
No, I was not.
Is it, we can pass information between us
For scheduling
without deliberating.
For scheduling
scheduling
purposes.
But she couldn't, as a clerk or a member, a vice chair of the clerk, call the chair and say, I heard this complaint about XYZ employee, because now
Because that's a
there's a quorum of
discussion.
you communicating on a matter of town
That you're going to
business.
deliberate.
Right.
I had no choice, and town council said I had no choice. It probably will never happen again.
Yeah. I mean, you do have a choice. It's perhaps not a good choice for you, but the choice would be, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I need to schedule an executive session, exemption number 1 for a complaint against the town administrator, notice is given to the town administrator, and we end up all in...
You know what, I think Sue's point, I think, is well taken, that there are times, there needs to be an emergency exemption.
I have, but my concern, and again, I have
I don't wanna make it-
seen this, I've seen this happen, where you, I say this lovingly, but
Sure you do.
But you don't exist unless you're convened.
That's right.
Your power
I
doesn't exist
agree.
unless you're convened.
I
So
agree.
if one member of the board hears a complaint and then takes an action on it, who is that member and under what authority are they doing so? Because they don't exist.
Well, but I think in terms of,
Our liability does exist.
yes, and in
And
terms
there's
of
a way to handle
talking
that
to...
under the law.
But
You
in terms
post,
of talking...
you give notice, you get in the room.
No, I would have been beside myself doing that
And I guess
alone.
I have difficulty because I don't know the issue.
And I guarantee you that this was an issue that any one of you would have said the exact same thing. I want the ability in a situation like that to make a determination and to go to town council on my own. If town council at that point says, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, but, or, you know, this is bogus, don't worry, that's fine. Okay, but you need the ability to go to town council when you can't talk to your other members. This isn't a situation, if we had a 5-man board,
Right.
I could go to one of the other ones.
What would be an example of an issue you could have that you wouldn't use the existing process and convene a meeting? I mean, if the TA is accused of, you know, open hand slapping an elderly person at the Council on Aging, you'd convene the meeting, you'd give me the notice. If I was being accused of embezzlement, you'd convene the meeting, you'd give me notice, you put me out. I mean, the process exists to do this. I just don't, I get squirrely on individual members when not convened, having the ability to play in the edges. And
I don't think it's playing on the edges. I think what it
I don't have
is...
an example to
No, I know,
understand.
but I understand your concern, okay? But I think you have to hope that the integrity of the people on the board is intact enough that that is not going to happen. I mean, our town council is pretty good at not playing politics or anything like that either, you know? I mean, they will not get involved. They'll tell you right away, I can't get involved in anything like that, okay? So I wouldn't, I would not worry about it. I simply want, in extraordinary circumstances where you don't have anyone else to go to for this, or you're not comfortable going to somebody because of your concerns about open meeting law or due process.
Oh, I get it. I get all those reasons. I just don't get, I can't envision an issue where you wouldn't give the employee the due process rights that the law currently provides, which is notice, the ability to hear.
I let town council do that.
It's not their job, though.
Can I interrupt, please, to Mr. Kryler, to Sue, and to Cindy, with all due respect?
It's late.
I think we all can agree that this may need work. And I think our personal experiences and knowledge, as long as it doesn't violate any rules, which you guys are very adept at, may have an opportunity to be expressed with yourselves, and knowing your skill level and Sue's skill level, and Cindy's will come back with a document that might cover these better another time.
Maybe Sue and I can actually talk to council on that point. And, you know,
Well, you can
David-
talk to
and Dave-
council.
No, I would do it with you, just so there's...
Can I find out, I'm thinking, I was just trying to think, because I mean, I want that emergency, because I remember my first meeting, I ran out of the room and I was on the phone with the council. I wouldn't do it today, and say, if I had the issue again, but my experience now is different, that I would know better how to handle the issue that it was. I can't remember all the specifics, but I was upset about something, and I didn't trust my board members, and I wanted to talk to council. It was...
But you were then convened in an appropriate executive session.
No.
Yes. No, you were.
Yes, yes, we were. You went to recess and you came back.
You were.
Did we?
Yes, you
Oh,
were.
I don't know what we were doing.
And then you got educated.
Because I was here, but I was out of the room.
No, that was before you.
No, I had been interviewed early that night. I was
Was it
actually
that
still
night,
here.
same night? Were you
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Where I ran out of the room?
Okay, so we
Anyway,
can agree upon
no.
this. You see that Cindy has some concerns, Sue has some concerns.
I would like to resolve it tonight.
I don't think we can, because
No.
it's got,
Yeah,
it's,
I think it's worded fine.
I think we can add a sentence.
actually, there are things that happen in the past of actions of council I want addressed in the policy.
Oh, you want more than this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I was just thinking that if there's...
No, there's things that council did that I want forbidden in the future.
Oh, you want to make this a multi-page document?
I want to make it a policy that works, not a multi-page.
Okay.
But that's,
All right, because I was just
What
thinking of
what this doesn't say, actually, maybe to Gordy's point is, I've been in another community where you have the authorization like this, and council is not allowed to bill unless they actually have the signed sheet. And those are the only things they can bill for, is if they've got proof of an authorization, so you don't get people working around the system and council not
Okay, so
knowing.
how's this, okay? What if something like that happened today, and I gave the chair the form and said, I can't tell you what it is, I just need your permission to talk to town council, because they're not going to talk to me unless you sign this form.
I have a thought, if it's just on this, that if everything that, I haven't it's been a long time since I've wanted to personally talk to town council. I always go to Jim, and Jim, I'll check with council. And he makes a determination, because he
And
talks to
that's
council all the time.
98% of the time, that's all you need.
Yeah, and for most matters, if we're going to add a sentence, that for the most part, we're going to consult with town administrator to make, we're not even going to talk to town council personally, but yet, for this example that he was given, that, okay, it's a complaint against 10, or he might be unavailable if he's for illness or for vacation, or he's just unavailable and something's happened.
Or you can't talk to me because I'm accused of having done something horrific.
Right, if it's either
Exactly.
he's the issue or he's unavailable, and we don't need to put that he's the issue, but that for whatever the reason is, he's unavailable and it's an urgent matter, that any one of us can, or even all three of us, can call council in order to, if we can't, if convening an emergency meeting is not satisfactory, if we just
It
need to...
wouldn't be in that kind of
And it would still be
situation.
under the 5-minute rule.
I think that's arbitrary and capricious, the 5-minute rule.
But he has to be unavailable.
The 5 minutes,
If he, I know, I'm just,
Well, no,
I threw
just-
that out.
I know,
We can
but-
delete that. But if he's in Massachusetts, even if he's home, we can get him. He answers his phone,
he does do that.
he does.
Off hours.
He emails, whatever it is.
But to Sue's point, you wouldn't be trying to reach me in that situation because you can't, based on what it is that's going on.
But it can't be, when I say that Jim's unavailable, he has to be really unavailable. Like, we know he's on an airplane somewhere, or he's ill and unavailable, or he's, in Aruba, and he's not available.
Can I make a
That-
respectful suggestion? No. All right. This is much more in depth than I thought, and I have some ideas. Could we have a work session for this?
Okay, let's move on. We're not going to get there.
Yeah, we can.
All right?
That's fine.
I'm not
I
trying,
was hoping I could get to something that
but
was
there's
gonna work.
other things that I haven't brought up, and so I think a work session.
But if you're talking about council response, then that's a different policy,
Okay. But I
is what I'm
think
thinking. But never mind, all right, we can talk about it later.
I'm not trying to shut you down.
I know,
I'm
but you
just-
probably have some other things that I need to consider.
Well-
Going to take too long, huh?
Yeah, we could do,
Well,
this is not an...
it's not about road race, it's about doing it once, doing it right, and not have to revisit.
Okay.
Also listening to
So in the interim,
everyone.
let's avoid calling Townsend unless
So
we have to.
can we do a work session on policies then and just skip over these next couple right now?
Yeah,
I would not be opposed to that, but I need Sue and Cindy to be on board with that.
yeah.
Would that be good, Sue, for you?
As long as we do it soon.
All right, so the answer is, on those things Mr. Crowther's nicely brought forward to us, we're going to work out a way to have a work session, all right? Is that okay? And
Actually-
I hope no one thinks I'm trying to cut you off.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, because you know what? I mean, most of these have to do with policies. We could have a work session and just go through policies.
Absolutely.
You know, and there might be a couple more you'd want to add into that, too.
Well, I mean,
And what we
the
get
next
through,
one
we
is
get through.
personnel, which is
Right.
nothing we're doing tonight, but will take some effort, so.
Exactly.
So is everyone good with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, Jim, do you need to go to vacation or technology?
Nope, we're skipping over those policies.
Thank you
It's going to
very
be a work session.
At this time, with the permission, and thank you, everybody, for cooperation working together. 5.2, Board of Selectmen's updates and reports. Sue?
Well, I met with the Council on Aging. I went to their meeting, and it was really informative, and I'll be as quick as possible, and I did make copies for you guys.
Well, thank you for that.
Okay?
I think there's one for Jim
So,
there, too.
Jim, you'll have something to refer to. They have a full roster now. They welcome their two final members. They had their first reading of the Townsend Senior Center patron policy. And the word patron was missing from it initially, and I think that had caused some confusion. But their document is intended to outline patron rules regarding the use of the senior center equipment, bus programs, all of that, okay? And they had their first reading, but Jim, that's one that you want to take a look at too, because I think there was confusion. I think somebody thought that it had to do with the senior center personnel, and it did not, okay? There was a discussion around release and waiver form, as it was causing some confusion, and I think that was because it came out with that.
Right.
Okay? So if you can work on straightening that stuff out. If they're still confused. I think they're feeling a little better, but they might need you to help on that. Karen Moore and Kate Petrosi will be attending the Mass Council on Aging's annual conference in October, and thanks to the Friends of the Townsend Seniors, they're paying for their overnight lodging as well. They help out a lot from what the group said. They're getting meeting hall requests and not necessarily knowing what to do with them. I referred this already to our town administrator, and that's something that you were going to talk with us about at a meeting too,
That'll actually be a
properties
good-
committee and all that.
That'll be a good part of the work session, because there is an existing meeting hall use policy.
Yes, I looked at it today, actually.
It's not really, I don't think it's been dusted off and used.
No, but we need to think about policies in terms of, room policies in terms of, who is the
who's
properties
monitoring?
committee? And, do we need one, or what's going on at the fire station? What's he done over there,
Right.
too, okay? So just to kind of bring it together. There's some ongoing issues, Jim and I talked about this, too, with AV equipment in the meeting hall, and it does sound like they might need some replacement equipment, so I said for them to talk with you more from the standpoint of procurement, if that's necessary. Although I don't know the amount.
Yeah, I did speak with Mark about it when he got back from having been out, and he said that he had some quotes. The question was how they were going to divvy up the expense. Library, Council on Aging, whether facilities would pay for some. So there is...
Yeah, I think they're going to need you to referee on that one.
Absolutely.
Okay? just because the seniors and the library are in the same building doesn't mean that they're, it's not their equipment. Do you know what I mean? So it's the hall's equipment. And I'm not sure with the technology today if that fits under IT more than it does maintenance. So, announcement was made, a couple of announcements. They're having a senior center fall fling. It's going to be an open house for residents to see and sample the programs that they offer to the seniors, and they're going to sprinkle in some other events there. Date is Saturday, September 30th, 9 to 3. They're asking, or I'm asking, if we could post that on the website, okay? Another one, the William May Endowment Dinner is going to be held on Saturday, October 21st at Townsend Ridge. I'm not sure the time. It's usually, Peter Buxton could tell you about tickets if you wanted. You can get more details when Karen comes back. I think she's back next week. But that should probably go on the website, too. There's a lot of folks that would like that. They're a great group, very enthusiastic. They got a lot of work done that day. Pleasure to go. Do you need one, too?
I actually,
Copy, thank you.
what I did, if it's all right with you, Sue, I actually circled the two for you that she wants posted. Oh, you have?
Oh, no, I have just...
Okay, all right, that's all. I know you got a lot going on over there.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Sue, for that, and thank you for all the work you did over there. Cindy, do you have anything?
Nope.
Wow, sound like me. I just have two quick things. One, I want to acknowledge that people have been out and about, the tremendous improvement in the grounds around Town Hall, around the Senior Center, around the library and the police department. The grounds there look like they should look, and I've seen the crews, and they're operating efficiently, and the other thing is I see them operating very safely. I see the proper safety equipment on them, so Mr. Crowder, you can let the vendor know that I appreciate their efforts.
And that's Shepherd's, right?
It is Shepherd's, yes.
Question?
Absolutely.
Somebody mentioned something to me the other day. It's, you bump into people just when you're out shopping or whatever. They said that the property at the old fire station in West Townsend is pretty overgrown and not looking really...
Right. Where the VFW was taken down.
It is
I don't know, I haven't been down
growing
there.
tumbleweeds.
But it might be nice if we could just trim it up, even though we're not doing anything, just because it's on the main street, and it's not a very good
And I don't have a
picture for
real,
town.
I think Sue was talking about the area that used to be
The old
Yeah,
horseshoe pits.
actually,
And the problem there is, please check into it, but I think the problem they're having is that the bids are coming this week, but there's debris in there, so it's gonna be hard to, how do you trim with this?
Yeah,
But
last
What
year,
about even around the the fire station itself? I
a
think
couple
that they-
times last year we had it taken care of, so we'll definitely get that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's
That's awesome.
weed
I saw it
whacking.
today, too.
Reflection.
You get those long...
And the firefighters take care of this one over here, so maybe they could do that one down there too. Whatever.
actually, on that,
As long as it gets done.
I've been thinking about
Because
it
you
even
lived
over the
down
winter,
there.
and I was over in that, because I live around the corner from there today, that I wasn't so much worried about the high grass in there, but the sidewalk, there is a sidewalk that goes all the way from really the brick store all the way to the intersection of New Fitchburg Road, and it's where the Legion isn't there anymore. Nobody's maintaining the sidewalk, but it is still a sidewalk that I'm sure the townspeople paid for at some
And
point.
you don't want somebody
And
falling.
the grass, the grass is coming up between the cracks. It's not being maintained, so I'm thinking if, I don't know, it's town property, so if we can just maintain the
Absolutely.
sidewalk, just even to cut the grass on the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
because I get critical of other
People
towns
walk.
that have...
A lot of people use that sidewalk. That's a very highly used sidewalk.
So, with all due respect, if you could thank the vendor for...
I will.
And
I will.
to address, which is, thank you, Sue, for that, and Cindy, address those areas of
It'll be taken
concern.
care of.
Thank you. All right, so that, and then, Mr. Crowler, I don't want to have any discussion with the board members out of respect, but I just want to ask Mr. Crowler that bills payable for the water department be separated from the others for the next cycle, not for this one, all right? And the reason for that is I am seriously considering, since March 1st, the water department's been in receipt of our forensic auditors telling them that they have a 40% error rate in their inventory. And unless, this is me personally, I'm not having a discussion with the boards, but I'm just letting you know, and the board know, that I'm not going to sign any more bills payable for them until I know they're implemented, that the recommended controls for a 40% error rate. And to put it simple, I'm a pretty simple guy, is I have 10 fingers here. Those 4 are gone. Do you want to know where they are? So if you have $10 and we don't know what 4 is, I cannot, under my oath, sign that bill anymore. So that's all I'm asking. I don't want any more discussion on that because I don't want to violate anything, but I'm just letting everyone know I will not sign if they don't have those controls, so I know I'm signing accurate things. And besides that, thank you, everybody. I have nothing. Sue, I already asked, Cindy, I already asked, and we're going to move on to 5.3, and I don't think on that...
It's one set of minutes.
If I'm just asking Sue, I don't think you were part of that, so if it'd be all right with you, I'm just going to ask Cindy, and then you abstain, is that